Because you got powerful legs. How'd you get the physique? Was it gym or how'd you get the physique?
I've always been.
She's actually not got powerful legs. Do you shower in your dressing room? Do you have a shower on the day of a fight or not? Tell us about the tattoos.
Shut the fuck up, you little prick.
But then I've got the Phoenix.
Hey, prick.
So I'll take it from Bob every day of the week.
Absolute disgrace.
That's your knowing mind.
Move him out of here, there.
Ricky Hatton didn't go over for his fighter because he risked getting abducted and sold into sexual
I never said that.
Both have been rape victims. I'm not watching Frank Buglioni live on Saturday night. You're out of your mind.
Jesus Christ, get yourself a life.
He's actually a priest.
Yeah.
It's because his brother John Fury eye gouged him.
What have I told you all this time? He's going to end up sucked out, fucked out, looking for a handout.
Boxing nutters messenger group. I'm gonna be the king.
J-Pump. You know what I'm saying?
Welcome, folks, to the 596th edition of the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse, brought to you by Boxing Asylum. Boxing Asylum. You can catch us every Sunday, 8 o'clock in the UK, noon Pacific time in the United States, and all time zones in between and outside. We are a proud member of the Sports Social Network, and you can find us Spotify, YouTube, iTunes, all those good places where you catch your podcasts. And now, apparently, you can catch boxing on Netflix. Well, at least there's a few fights. There was one shit show, but there was a few good boxing matches on there as well. Let's take it from the top, though, the one that everybody is talking about. More than 60 million households tuned in to watch Iron Mike Tyson, or 58-year-old Mike Tyson, aluminum Mike Tyson, take on Jake Paul. And Mike went the distance. He never really landed any shots. He doesn't have the legs, didn't have the first step, couldn't close the distance. Kind of think Paul might have let him see the end. Who knows? But for anybody and everybody who was a fan of Tyson, either if they were around during his prime or following back through the years, the legend that it was amazing to see the man in person walk to the ring one more time. But that was the last of any memory of Mike Tyson I hope to have from that night. I was live and in person, and it was a rough one for the old man, and he looked all of his 58 years of age. Just couldn't seem to make it happen. Dez, I mean, a lot of the times we like to break down, how fights went down, what happened, how they are able to get the advantage. This one was just a young guy versus an old man who just simply didn't have it anymore, against all of our dreams and wildest hopes. And I think the only technical way to break it down for you is he had decent defense at times, but Mike could no longer move his head and throw a punch anymore, right? He could no longer move his feet and throw a punch. He was doing one thing or the other now.
Yeah. And by the way, how are you doing, Matty? How was it on for us? It was early hours of Saturday morning. How did you find it being in there?
It was an amazing atmosphere, and it was, we'll get to the other fights at some point. But if I would have yelled some of the things I yelled after the Taylor Serrano fight in Ireland, I would have gotten my ass kicked. But that's another story. Let's go to the Tyson Paul fight. Your thoughts, Tez?
There was loads of positives as well to come out of it. Look, if we could just put the Tyson and Paul thing to one side just for a moment. I would like to say that I'm here for Netflix and boxing. I think Netflix and sport could be a brilliant partnership. I think they'd have a wonderful production. I like the camera angles. I like the visuals. A good cast of characters. I thought the atmosphere they generated was amazing. Ironically, the following night in Riyadh, it was lacking all sorts of atmosphere and even a crowd. And if you could just merge the type of boxing we saw on Saturday with the type of atmosphere we got on Friday, you'd have the ultimate event. And I think if we can keep Netflix involved in sport, then you're going to probably get Amazon coming to it, and who knows who else. And I think this might be the future. And it's a shame we've not got Yimi Yappy on the call, because he works in the media and he knows the numbers, and he has a little bit more au fait about it with me. But I think the future of sport will end up on these streaming channels. I think we're going to get Premier League football on Netflix and Amazon. I think we're going to get big time boxing on Netflix and Amazon. And what I saw on Friday, I'm here for that. I really enjoyed the production value. I thought it was brilliant. About the main event, I was suspicious about this main event, and I still am. And I'm not a sore loser. You know my feelings about elite sports people. I think they're special people. They're like aliens. We don't see many of them. They've got true talent, and talent's something that gets a word that gets overused, but very rarely do we see people with natural talent. And I think natural talent carries you through your life. And I'm a bit like Teddy Atlas. I believe in it. And I really thought that if Mike Tyson wants to end this one early, he could. If he let his hands go and shut Jake Paul down, Jake Paul ain't got the strength, the experience, or the know-how to live with even a 58-year-old Mike Tyson. But look, did they have an arrangement? Did they agree, I'm not going to hit you hard, and when we get in the later stages, don't jump on me? I don't know. I think there was an awful lot of posturing, and we got to a stage where neither guy was throwing. It was clear that Mike Tyson couldn't move his legs. If I'm honest, I didn't like watching it. And I caught it at 7:30 Saturday morning when I woke up, and I watched it. And after round 3, I watched it on the fast forward, and I watched it to the end, and I saw the result. I wasn't surprised Jake Paul got it, because I can see the longevity in Jake Paul, and I can see why there's a lot of legs in Jake Paul where Netflix are concerned. But ultimately, Matty, I think there's been 3 winners here. I think Mike Tyson was a winner. He's come out looking okay and benefiting from it. I think Jake Paul's
$20 million. Yeah, I'll take that L.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you hear that? Did you hear that the pop he was getting? You was there. The pop he was getting during the fight. It reminded me of that WrestleMania scene when Hogan and The Rock fought, and everybody expected the crowd to be for The Rock, but then when they saw Hogan in the ring, they just went back 25 years and they become kids again. And I think that crowd was a little bit like that with Mike Tyson.
Yep.
But
100%.
And finally, the last winner is Netflix, because look, I walk into gymnasiums and tennis clubs and athletics clubs. No one really pulls me about boxing, but on Saturday morning, everybody was asking me, "Did you watch it? How did you see it? Is it real?" And then they started talking about Mike Tyson. They started going back in time again. I just think it got eyes on the sport, and that's what Netflix intentions were. So in closing on this particular main event, there are 3 winners: Paul, Tyson, and Netflix. And it is what it is, I'm afraid. This is not proper boxing. This is probably 75, 80% WWE and 20% boxing. But it's doing the job it's meant to do, I suppose, which is get eyes on the sport.
Yeah, it was just sad in a lot of ways, and I'll tell you what. One of the things I was very happy about was the fact that I was watching it live, and I missed Mike Tyson's ass in real time, which apparently they showed. He was just wearing his support strap, and he turned around, and there was the ass cheeks of Mike Tyson live on Netflix for everybody to see. That's the title of the episode: Headbutts, Butt Cheeks, and so much more. It was just, I don't know, James. I feel like this is one of those fights where I guess we'll call it that, but it's one of those nights. Let's go with that better, where he might have cashed a paycheck and everything, but I think you look in 20 minutes. I don't know if anybody's stock has ever gone down as much as Mike Tyson's did on Friday night. I mean, it went from people chanting Tyson and screaming his name to like booing it and just walking out before the decision was read. It was. Do you think Mike is going to look back, James, and say this was worth it? I mean, $20 million makes it easy to swallow, but man, this is a legacy shot.
Well, I just saw Mike Tyson's bare ass as well just before I came up here. It was during the Serrano and Taylor fight. He was having an interview with his son. He's like, "I love you." Then turns around, and then all of a sudden, his arse cheeks are just out. I was thinking, am I in a fever dream or something like that? I don't know. It was a bizarre moment, but the whole broadcast was a little bit bizarre. And Tyson's career has been bizarre at points. So maybe it was fitting that if it's going to be one of the last times we see him, it's in a card like this, where even though there was legitimate bouts on the undercard, I think the main attraction was a little bit of a corporate event, especially when you see both the Paul brothers and the space that they occupy coming in a low rider. And Mauro Ranello, the commentator, he's just talking about how the low rider's made and who made it and how many diamonds are on Jake Paul's shorts and who sponsored this. And it was such a corporate event at the end of it. And I think it does like lead questions as to how legitimate of a contest it was, because they had 14-ounce gloves on and they did appear to be competing at times. But I definitely think that Jake Paul could have landed more punches throughout that fight. And it was screamingly obvious to everyone that Mike Tyson no longer had even an ounce of the maneuverability, the mobility, and the speed that made him such a great fighter in his youth. But so what were people expecting? He's 58. Like, what were you expecting? This, like, because Tyson occupies such a prominent space in the public consciousness, and because he's remembered as the baddest man on the planet, this unstoppable force, like, people kind of forget that he was on the wrong side of some pretty bad losses towards the end of his career. And he has occupied this space as the baddest man on the planet through media for a quarter of a century up to this point. So, yeah, I don't know what people were expecting. Like, I don't think Jake Paul goes anywhere near anything resembling a prime Mike Tyson. But, yeah, I don't think his legacy goes down. But as you said, it's a lot of money, and he'll probably do it again. You'll probably see it against Logan Paul or something. So, you know, to see your question in a long-winded way, I think the fight as a contest was a little bit farcical, but it was good because it had legitimate undercard support. And I think Tyson just occupies this space now as a famous person, as a superstar. I don't really think you could do much to detract from it.
No, God, I hope he doesn't fight Logan. That would be freaking ridiculous. I just hope it's done. And like anybody who's excited at this point in time, I mean, it's a fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you kind of thing. Or fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Excuse me, not that reverse. But kind of situation when it comes to that. I just couldn't see it. But again, if they stack it with a great boxing undercard, you know, I'll watch the boxing and probably just avoid Tyson. But Des, I'll tell you something crazy that I watched today. I watched a little video from the press conference, and did you know that Gervonta Davis has called out Jake Paul? Do you think 5'5" Tank Davis could find a home for that left hand and drop the 200-pound Jake Paul? Of all the morbid, stupid shit, I don't dismiss it. After the crap we have seen, why wouldn't this happen? What do you think? Is it at all impossible that you could see Gervonta Davis fight Jake Paul?
Well, let's back up for a minute. Let's just say it did happen. You think Jake Paul beats Tank Davis?
70 pounds is a lot of weight. No, especially, I mean, I like, but you hold on. You had me convinced that old Mike Tyson was going to walk through Jake Paul. So I'm not going to necessarily buy your argument that a midget's going to walk through Jake Paul. Okay.
Right.
But
so
continue.
I'm convinced. I'm absolutely. if you just look back at Tommy Fury's resume, and we're not here to bash Tommy Fury, by the way, but Tommy Fury come out of a television show, turned pro, and has had 10 fights. 1, 2, 3, 4 of them 10 are against guys that have never won a fight. One of them was against a guy that's lost 102 fights. 2 of them against guys that have lost 26. One of them never won a fight. The other one's won 2 fights. Like, this guy fights guys that have had multiple digit losses. He beat Jake Paul. Like, I've seen it with my own eyes. I know what a good fighter looks like. Jake Paul throws arm punches. Jake Paul's balance is off. Jake Paul can't hit. And I'm not here knocking Jake Paul. I'm just lifting boxers. I know how hard boxing is, and I know how specialist the sport of boxing can be. And when you see guys at the top end, you can't imagine how dangerous they are. You can't imagine what they can do to you. They can kill you. We've seen it. People get seriously hurt in boxing. People walk into that ring in their fittest state they've ever been in. Probably one of the top 10% of all human race at that time in life. And they come out of that ring hurt. Boxing is a special sport. Jake Paul doesn't belong in that because of what I've seen. Jake Paul is having a go, and he's a brilliant businessman, and he's wonderful. He's a wonderful marketing guy. And I look at Jake Paul and I think, wow, he's got the attention of the mums and the wives and the brothers and the sisters, the guys down the gym, the man in the street. He hits notes that boxers just can't hit. He gets it. But if you're talking to me specifically about boxing, I wouldn't put Jake Paul anywhere near a proper fighter. I'm surprised that he got away with that with Mike Tyson. I really am surprised, because he wouldn't get away with it with anyone else of that era, anyone else that generation. I don't want to come across like I'm a bad sport. I didn't think Jake Paul could get past Mike Tyson. But looking at it, I still don't like what I'm seeing. In answer to the question I've asked you, if Tank Davis was to fight Jake Paul, Tank would light him up.
And the fact that they might be able to sell it so that both of them make, more than $20 million to do it, and the public might buy it. That's when you talk, like, Jake Paul is a brilliant marketer, and he's gonna, however long he boxes is up in the air. I think he'll be around boxing promotions for a very long time.
Yes, and so he should be. And so he should be, mate, because he gets it. I said to my wife the other day, because she asked me about him, and she said, well, how good is he? I said, no, he's not a boxer, but he's a brilliant promoter. And boxing needs this type of promotion. And if we could just fuse a lot of the stuff he does with a lot of the stuff we've currently got, I think you'd have a brilliant product. Please don't misunderstand me. I'm getting too passionate about this. I've got no time for Jake Paul as a boxer, because what I'm seeing is not good enough. It's not good enough. But as a promoter, what he can do for fighters, how he pays his fighters, the platform he puts his fighters on, I'm all about that. I think Jake Paul's brilliant at that. So don't misunderstand me. I'm not against Jake Paul, the promoter, the businessman, the marketing guy. I'm just against someone trying to tell me he can box, because I know what my eyes don't lie to me.
Yeah, he's no great shakes as a boxer. It's just It's amazing when you think. I'm just going to name some potential fights that Jake Paul could probably find himself in, and people would buy. Tank Davis, yeah, why wouldn't they do that? Oscar De La Hoya, why not? Oscar's a little bit younger than Mike. Why not? Why not Oscar? I can see that happening. Yeah, that's right up his alley. What else? Let's see here. Who else? Maybe Conor McGregor. I could see him fighting Conor McGregor in a boxing match.
Yeah, 100%. That'd be perfect. That'd actually be like really predictable and still sell more than anything else has ever sold.
Yeah, I mean, both of them are cons on their own level, right? I mean, I'm not saying McGregor isn't a good striker, but he's not the fighter that they made him out to be. I mean, he's a good fighter, but he's not as good as John Jones or Anderson Silva in that sphere by any stretch. So yeah, and I mean, didn't Jake already fight Anderson Silva? Speaking of,
yeah, he did. I think that didn't he knock him down? I mean, like, but that's the thing. Like Jake Paul, as Des is saying, he's picking the right fights at the right times against the right people, promoting it, because he's not supposed to be winning these fights. I think him even sharing the ring with these people, these legends in their sports, whether it's boxing or MMA, I think it's like kind of infuriating to people because it's like, how dare you step into this space, you know, when you haven't earned it. And it's like he's very shrewdly positioned and maneuvered himself and sold this idea, which I think is why it's so appealing. I mean, like that Gervonta Davis versus Jake Paul seems ludicrous, but it's just that kind of circus aspect that would sell it. Like I could see Jake Paul versus Inoue on New Year's Eve in Japan. Do you know what I mean? Like a old school freak show. Like that's the kind of thing that he'd be into. So
it's that weird world.
I can see any of it happening realistically.
Yeah, and it's nostalgia sells as part of the problem, and we're not nostalgic over 35 and 40-year-olds. You know, like that's well. A lot of these people are older. Again, that gets into the De La Hoya thing and the Anderson Silva, the fact. And here's a little argument against your Jake Paul doesn't necessarily belong in any way with these guys. So at least the way that he's able to sell it, he fought Anderson Silva after Anderson Silva beat Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. in a boxing match.
Yeah, and this is the thing, and this is why I'm not saying that he doesn't belong there. I'm saying that is the way he infuriates people. That's how he achieves his Mayweather effect. Like the people who doubt his abilities, it doesn't matter what level he's on. He's good enough to be aged or undersized people who are past it or injured or whatever. So he's picking them correctly. So if he's beating them, if the contest is on the level, then he does belong in there with them. But it's because he wouldn't have lasted 30 seconds with a prime Mike Tyson. I don't think anyone's in any doubt about that. So it's like, why are you picking him now? Or hope a 58-year-old Mike Tyson beats you up. It's that kind of aspect that he's getting at. So he does have some ability. And like beating Anderson Silva, even an aged Anderson Silva with his striking record in MMA, he's still pretty impressive, man. I was impressed by that. Now, whether that means he's good enough to be area British or European champion or something equivalent is a kind of a different argument. Do you know what I mean? But as for the commercial aspect of it, I think he's smashing it.
So let me make this argument. I think that Jake Paul could be competitive in an area title fight. That is his level, in my opinion.
Can I come in there, Matty? Can I come in there?
Yes, absolutely.
Right, so the current heavyweight Southern area champion is Nick Webb. Now I'm going to forgive
he'd be competing down at cruiserweight. This heavyweight thing was just a one-off. He usually competes down there.
So James, I mean, Matty, your knowledge of British boxing is amazing. Right? Are you familiar with Nick Webb though?
I cannot say that I have seen Nick Webb fight,
or
if I have, it would have been in the past.
Yeah, it's a bit of an unfair question for you because your knowledge, you and Justin amaze me with your knowledge of British boxing. But we're talking, the first belt to win now, guys that have had 8 and 9 fights. James, you're familiar with Nick Webb, aren't you?
Me, probably in passing, but I wouldn't say I'm familiar with him. Like I wouldn't be able to assess his level in relation to Jake Paul, to be honest.
Fair enough. So, all right, so the previous Southern area champion was someone we all know was Johnny Fisher, right? Do we accept that Jake Paul don't beat Johnny Fisher? Are we in agreement on that?
I kind of like that fight, but yeah, I'd say Johnny Fisher. I'd say Johnny Fisher would be too big, too strong. Yeah,
like and Johnny Fisher beat Harry Armstrong, and Harry Armstrong gave Johnny Fisher a really good argument that night. And Harry Armstrong come off a GB squad. Does Jake Paul beat Harry Armstrong?
I don't think I've ever seen Armstrong fight.
Fair enough. And the other night, Nick Webb beat Courtney Bennett for the area belt. And Courtney Bennett come off a GB squad and going in was 5-0. Does Jake Paul beat Courtney Bennett? I don't think he does. I think Courtney Bennett does him in 2 rounds, not even 2 rounds. So I'm really trying so hard not to be objectionable here. I'm trying so hard not to keep bashing him. But
and it's tough,
I can't see a place for Jake Paul in pro boxing.
Because as much as some people, because like he does have a decent right hand, he has a decent enough boxing brain to know all I have to do is jab and Mike can't touch me. Yeah, I mean that was simple enough. But his right hand is an actual weapon. I would argue. But the problem is is we would love to see him assessed on something similar to these levels. Obviously, it couldn't be a UK domestic scene fight kind of thing, but on some similar level. But why do that and make pennies when you can make over $30 million fighting 58-year-old Mike Tyson?
Well, no, so I get that. No, I absolutely get that.
You'd be fucking stupid.
And that's why I don't want to confuse the two here. So let's be clear. If Jake Paul wants to fight Oscar De La Hoya or Eddie Hearn or Francis Warren or Dana White and they can split 50 million, brilliant. That's great. But then let's not talk about him fighting for British titles or winning British titles or winning versions of world titles. I don't want the two to be intertwined. Look, I'm going to ask both of your questions. Someone you'll be familiar with. A heavyweight who's not a big heavyweight, who's never won any titles, who's been beaten multiple times.
Dave
How
Allen.
do you think Yes. Correct. How do you think Jake Paul gets on with Dave Allen? Both of you.
So and you also mentioned Johnny Fisher earlier. So basically, you're saying you want Jake Paul against the winner of Dave Allen versus Johnny Fisher.
Well, Johnny Fisher beats Dave Allen, but let's give Jake Paul the look. We there's no money in that fight, and this is they're on a different pathway. I understand that we're not silly here, but just to bring a bit of a remnants of reality to the conversation. You're both familiar with Dave Allen. How does Jake Paul get on over 10 threes with Dave Allen?
I think Dave Allen would fuck him up, man. Honestly.
Correct.
Because it's like Dave Allen's the sort of fighter where he's easy to ridicule because he's been beaten so many times on TV, but he does a lot of things that are pretty slick. And if you don't know what you're doing, he will take your head off, man. It's simple as that. I mean, like,
and he doesn't
I
get
agree.
beaten by anyone lower than British.
He's a proper boxer.
He's a proper
boxer. He's a proper boxer, right? So I think if you're putting Jake Paul in with a proper boxer and you said Dave Allen, but this is Dave Allen got stopped by Fraser Clark, and Fraser Clark just got stopped in one by Fabio Wardley. So that's pretty much now we've got to try and get a level to this and some sensibility to this conversation where Jake Paul's concerned. Jake Paul is a brilliant marketing guy. I think he's great for what Jake Paul does and that pathway, that line that they're going down. And if it's Eddie Hearn or Oscar De La Hoya, Dana White, an NBA player, whether, I don't know, I don't know about wrestlers, but if a WWE wrestler wants to turn pro and have one fight with Jake Paul, the public would buy it because Jake Paul's that guy.
Jake Paul against Roman Reigns in a boxing match would make so much fucking money. It would be unreal.
Precisely my point. So that's the lane. That's the lane he's in. He's operating in, and that's him. But what I want to try and do is push against this narrative that sort of people are sort of like squeezing him into the lane of boxing, pro boxing. I know how hard boxing is. I know how hard boxers work. We all know how tough it is, and I don't want to confuse the two. Jake Paul's excellent in his lane, but I don't want people to think, well, do you know what? Because he looks really good against Mike Tyson, because he didn't look really good, but because he beat Mike Tyson, and because he's got a profile, and because he says all the right things, we can now sort of maybe talk about him winning a world title or a version of a domestic title, and that's wrong. Boxing's tougher than that, and boxers deserve more respect than that. The lane Jake Paul's in, he's brilliant at it. And he'll handpick the guys. They'll all be well paid. And on the undercard, fighters will be well paid and they'll lift people. I think he's brilliant at that. But I don't want to see anyone putting Jake Paul in the same category as a Fabio Wardley or a Fraser Clark or a Solly Dakers or a Dave Allen or any of them guys or David Adelaide, because them guys are proper boxers. And if you were to put one in the ring with the other, you'd see the difference. It'd be like night and day.
Yes, so Thomas Newman says Vidal Riley is a good fight for Jake Paul. Someone mentioned Froch in there, and to kind of touch on it, Bellew showed up at the press conference or something and yelled some shit, whatever he does. He does this thing. James, I'm just going to throw this out to you. Froch is in his mid-40s by now, I think. I don't know his exact age. And I'm not even guessing winner on this one. Obviously, we'd lean towards Froch. But do you think that Jake Paul against Carl Froch could sell out Wembley?
You know what, man? My instinct is to say no, but with the right build-up Yeah, why not, man? I mean, like, madder things have happened, and the pre-fight banter with Frotch would be next level. Like, I'd probably try and get a ticket if they were selling them for like 20 quid or something. I'd probably go to that, to be honest with you.
Well, this fight was either the highest or the second highest gate in the history of United States boxing outside of Las Vegas.
That's not really that surprising, you know, honestly. Like, because, I mean, what you went, didn't you, Matty? Like, were the tickets cheap in compared to like other big fights you'd be going to or looking to go to?
Wasn't ridiculous. We had we were up a bit, but we had like cushy club section seats, and I think they were like 150 or 200 a piece, something like that. It was a Christmas present. My girlfriend's very nice to me. She takes good care of me.
Fair play to her. But like, yeah, see, that's the kind of money where it's not prohibitive to people. It's when you start talking about like old school Mayweather fights that were like 25 grand to get in is where it's prohibitive. But yeah, I feel like the price point's nice and it's got like a 6-month build up and Frotch is giving it all the Illuminati chat beforehand. Yeah, probably could sell out Wembley.
You know, and here's the thing about the Mayweather fights, though, that a lot of the times, like the tickets were purchased by people or entities who are comping other folks too. That's the big story about Vegas is the number of seats that are scooped up to give to high rollers, people with money and shit like that. You know, it's Vegas gates are a little bit sketch in the way it's its own built-in thing, but because Vegas has its own culture of comps and shit like that. But that's a different story. But Des, I want your take on that. Frotch versus Jake Paul sells out Wembley. Worth exploring.
Well, I think you'd have to be a mug to say Jake Paul don't sell Wembley. They don't know who he's boxing. Look, if Jake Paul was to fight Cole Frotch, it wouldn't be Cole Frotch that sells it. It would be Jake Paul. This guy's a marketing genius, and he hit. Look, I'm probably the wrong person to talk to about that particular demographic because I'm from a different generation. But from what I understand, the Jake Pauls and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm going to get this wrong. The Digis and the KSIs and these type of characters that operate on YouTube, they're phenomenal what they do, but they're not in my lane. I couldn't pick them out of the lineup. But there's millions and millions of people that subscribe to them. So all you got to do is get a 1%, not even that, 0.5% of that buying tickets. Absolutely, Jake Paul would sell out Wembley. And if you could put him in there with a Cole Frotch, that offers real jeopardy. But in answer to your question, Matty, Jake Paul against anyone could sell out Wembley because he's that big a draw.
I don't know, because he was on the Serrano card in Puerto Rico, and I mean that was it sold well, but I think there was a few seats that were available.
Now let me be clear. Sorry, let me be clear. I don't mean a Caribbean island, or I don't mean a small. I'm talking about the bonkers Western world.
Okay.
I'm talking about America. The UK. He could sell any arena. He could sell any stadium because they've got that type of marketing pull behind them.
See, and I think as long, and this is it's messed up seeing an old Mike Tyson. And I think like there is some lines to be drawn, and I think Mike might have overtrained him a bit and made it so that, he probably would have lost anyways, but he was at more of a physical deficit, tough on the joints, things like that. And we don't want to see Jake taking advantage of that and stuff, but what he does for the people on the undercards, raising them up, the amount of money that Taylor and Serrano made was nuts. Amanda made $6 million.
I'm here for that. I'm here for that. I love that.
It's kind of messed up because it's kind of like selling our soul to the devil, right? But the means certainly justify the ends. And let's for his take on that, how about we get seconds out own Eamon Khan. Ames, what's the thoughts, my friend?
Seconds out owned? Am I owned by them? I've been let off the leash.
You don't work for them anymore?
No, I do. I thought you said owned.
Said own. No ED. Own. Yeah. As representative of they're one of their people. Not like you're their slave and you're picking cotton once you get off the podcast.
You know what? It's a good evening or good night, whatever it is, to all the gentlemen here and listening in the podcast as well, too, in the chat, and Holly, of course. Thank you for having me on. Yeah, look, my apologies. I haven't tuned in earlier. I was otherwise engaged. I haven't got your thoughts in my head as to how you guys have read the fight, but
hey, goth girls need attention too. I get it, dude. I get it.
I was at Alien Ant Farm. It was class. There's a couple of hairy moments in there, and one really annoying moment. A couple of people ruined the concert almost to a degree, and that's another story for another day. No, look, I tuned in. I woke up early to watch it, and I went back to watch little bits of the Ramos and Barrios fight, as well as Katie Taylor versus Amanda Serrano fight. But it was all about the main event, and I thought, for me, it looked like Jake Paul wasn't going in on Mike Tyson. When I first watched it, I thought, when Mike was sort of like putting his gloves to his mouth, I thought, is Mike calling shots? You know, like in wrestling,
biting his glove.
Yeah, but you know, like in wrestling, where you know you've got to do the fancy camera cut so they can call a spot or call a clothesline, a DDT, or whatever it is, so they know where they're going in the match. I thought maybe Mike was doing that, and then Jake would like throw a right hand, and Mike would slip in, all this sort of stuff. I thought that all that was going on. Then one camera shot like showed that he was just biting, like you said, his glove, and he explained that he had a biting fixation post fight. But
we
for
know,
me,
Mike. We know.
Yeah. For me, this just looked like someone. I think Jake knew. I think Jake, Mike, Logan, they're all pretty close, and they thought they could get Mike another payday. And Jake knew he had the beating of Mike Tyson. If he went in and tried to hurt him, Mike wouldn't be able to respond back because he's falling apart. Basically, you see his leg was braced up. He was shuffling around for about a round and a half. Maybe there was a little bit of functionality there, but outside of that, there wasn't all that much. And I've heard other claims, and I've spoken to other people in the industry, respected journalists that I respect and are respected widely, and they've said, look, that's a load of nonsense. If Jake Paul would have loved to have Mike Tyson's name on his record and would love to have stood on the top ropes and celebrated whilst Mike lay on the canvas. I don't know, man. I don't know. I think this is a bit of a friendly fight here. For everyone knew kind of what it was going in, and
an exhibition without headgear, thus the 14-ounce gloves.
Yeah, and I think the conclusion really is: do people feel somewhat hoodwinked by this? Because you were sold on this being...
people leaving the arena, Ames. Oh my God, did they ever feel that way?
Go on, Matty, tell me.
And I'm sorry, like I haven't even touched, like I'm so used to hosting that I even get like into the experience aspect of the whole thing. But I almost like, because let me say, it took about an hour to be able to get an Uber out of there. And I had many frustrating interactions with cab drivers where they tried to change the dollar on me at the last minute. One doubling the price to $100, at which point I told him, fuck you, I could get a blowjob for $100. And
what? You said that?
Yes, I said that. It's fucking clear
God.
as day. There's fucking bunch of people walking by too. Fuck him. But like people were just pissed about the outcome. I mean, they're furious. I mean, guys like that normally would be moving T-shirts outside, no problem. You know, whether they're legit or not, they were moving nothing. Like, so I was able to pick up one for $10. I'm like, oh fuck it, that's easy choice, because like they knew they had to drop the price or no one was going to want to remember it because everyone was so upset. And the first round, the vibe was still kind of all right. You know, Mike stepped in a few times and had Jake backing up a little bit, and he had a couple of moments. But slowly after that, the energy got sucked out of the room, and folks were just, no one could make themselves leave until the final bell because it was Mike Tyson, and you're still thinking, can he land that one shot? Like, he still like has the power. Like, it's the last thing to go. And people were just really upset, and it kind of sucked the life, but they were just like, yeah, Mike's just old, and we were all pulling for him. And there was one specific thing he said that made me pull for him more. And I can't remember if it was the weigh-in or a pre-fight press conference or something of that nature, but he said, my children think I'm a nobody, but on Friday night, I'm going to show them that their father is something very special. And I just found that really touching, actually. And and it's kind of just brought back that nostalgia. Do you believe in magic? We've all watched the newer Rocky movies, Sylvester Stallone coming out, 60 years old, fucking back at it again. In the speech in that movie, obviously, fits right in with the series just as well as anything. And we've lived in that world. And it's very frustrating for us. And we could get, deep into all sorts of things on this, but I'll just, the bluntest thing I could say is we live for nostalgia right now because we don't understand the world we're living in now. And most of us don't like it one fucking bit. So we're grabbing onto the past too hard.
Matty, I like your insights here, so I want to keep the train going. So people were saying that they felt ripped off. They felt like, and how much did you pay for your ticket?
There was really nice seats, but there was in the 150, 200 section, but it was in the moving ticket market. I mean, a few weeks ago, there was $50 seats because Cowboy Stadium's huge. There's 70,000 people in there.
Okay, and had you seen Mike Tyson in action throughout in any of his fights in his professional career?
I had never been to one of his fights prior, no.
Okay, so did you, whether it be the ring walk, him in the ring, him throwing any combinations of punches, whatever it may be, did any of what you saw help put the picture in your mind of just how great Mike was in his pomp from what you saw on the night?
The energy of him coming to the ring is absolutely amazing, and everybody seeing the footage that they had saw, which I assume might have been sped up just a smidge and stuff like that, and just the feeling going into it, the slap at the weigh-in and stuff, which probably was the hardest shot Mike landed all week, right? The ring walk, to see the legend walk to the ring one more time was worth it. And if it just cut off right there, the legend would have lived on in full despite all the transgressions that had happened years ago. But unfortunately, as the fight went on, it started falling out. And I think the legend of Tyson, the stock of Tyson, the image of Tyson have all suffered because of last night, but not the bank account of Tyson. So we probably can live with it.
So you feel like you got a little slice of the aura of when Mike was coming out?
Yes.
Okay, that's really interesting because when I think of this, I think look, I'm worried and concerned about Mike's health here, but I would also still be in attendance because of the things that I was asking you. I want to be able to put together the puzzle of what Mike was like because I wasn't watching boxing back then, and just kind of how menacing he was, even just the way he would throw combinations. And if you can kind of put that together in some sort of way, that it might be worth it for that own experience of seeing it for your own eyes. I just thought this was a handshake deal between the lot of them, and they were all going to get out well. It just matters as to whether, like you said, and you've answered there, people did feel hoodwinked. But for the people who weren't in the stadium and watched on Netflix, how hoodwinked can you feel that you are if you already pay for Netflix and this is quote unquote free? Whilst you maybe have the expectation of a fight, and that wasn't that, you were entertained up until that point. And sometimes in boxing, in main events, they don't deliver. And also, you must, even though you're thinking this is gonna be a big fight, knowing that Mike's 58, you must know in the back of your mind, if you're thinking, expecting that, surely not. You know what? Surely this isn't gonna be a proper fight. So how disappointed can you really be in it? There's no real measure for that, and until they do another event of this kind or another Mike Tyson event of this kind, and the figures come through as to how many dropped off from the first one. But it being 50, 60 million, where was it you, Matty, or someone else was saying that there was a feeling, or there's some people saying in the industry that there's a feeling that it was going to be disappointing, that they felt they were going to draw only 30 million. And they drew somewhere around double that. It's astronomical viewing figures for Netflix. And although there was some,
thought it through really, really well. I mean, because that Venderson Nunez guy on the undercard, who's a fucking ugly ass looking chump, he has more social media followers than Jake Paul. Brazil is a huge country by population. Imagine how many people, jumped in because of him.
So Brazil's a bit of a weird one because I think Brazil might be the highest country or the biggest or highest country in the world that most use illegal streams to. They don't buy pay-per-view. I imagine they probably have Netflix and things in their households and stuff. But in general, they don't really buy pay-per-view. But he is huge. Whindersson Nunes is huge, and Misfits have used, Kingpin have used Whindersson Nunes in events in the past. He's a big deal. And the same thing as well, they then coupled him with an Indian fighter as well too. And Jake Paul's talking about fighting over in India as well.
Yeah, an Indian fighter, a country of well more than 1 billion people. It was they really thought out how to make this, and I would love to see a country by country, breakdown on this. I think it would be very interesting to check it, to see where the numbers come from.
But even then, like 30, 40, 50 million worldwide, I still think that's, in the grand scheme of things, that's still quite underwhelming for just how big it was, it sounds crazy to say as well. But yeah, bottom line with all this, I hope Netflix stay to some degree, because Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano will never get that many eyes on any of their fights in the future unless it's under a broadcaster or platform like Netflix, because they got an amazing. Me and my colleague from another outlet, Danny Gilfillan, we were looking at just the MVP prelims that were on YouTube, and there was 250,000 by the time we stopped keeping tabs of it, just watching the prelims. And gone are the days of you'd be seeing anything near something like that for YouTube prelims, just in anticipation of these fights. So again, for them, massive viewing figures for people who will never don't want to write anyone off, but they won't get those figures for themselves ever. So that has boosted boxing up and put boxing up on a pedestal to a degree. But when it comes off with the main event with that, it's a little bit of a it's not the true reflection of what boxing is, and it leaves you wondering where Netflix go with it, if they do more gimmick fights or they really like what they saw and realize the product of actual competitive boxing is captivating. Did the crowd in Texas really get behind Serrano and Taylor? They could have failed not to.
Oh,
right?
God, dude. Oh, that's a good segue. Let's go into this one. Then the crowd was very angry when the cards were read after the war between Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano in a fight where Taylor had a point deducted for a headbutt, and she had opened up a nasty cut on the eye of Serrano. This version of Taylor doing a whole lot more clinching, getting a little bit dirty in there. The crowd did not like it. In a fight where Amanda Serrano outlanded her by around 100 punches. They did it with the point deduction. The crowd did not believe that this was a reasonable outcome for the fight, even though it was another stellar fight. Maybe not as good as the first one. It's probably still this year's women's fight of the year. These two just have a style that gel. And when Taylor is forced to fight and not hold, it only gets better. But the crowd was very angry with these scorecards, myself included. Not going to say some of the things that I yell, but I feel for Taylor, because I think that this is kind of damaging her reputation in a way, and the way the public feels about her. That perfect view of Katie is starting to take some blows, much like the many uses of her excessively large head, as the trainer of Serrano said, has done to cause damage to her opponents. Did anybody in this group score the fight for Katie Taylor?
Yeah, I did.
Boo! Give you the same reaction we gave it to the judges. James, make your case.
I watched it about half an hour before the show went on air tonight. I had it 95-94 Taylor. I gave Serrano the 1st, 4th, 7th, and the 10th round. And even with the point deduction, I had Taylor edging it. So I think, to be honest, there's a lot of rounds in there that could have went either way. And I wouldn't complain if it was like 3 or 4 point swing in any kind of direction. There were loads of rounds in there that could have went either way. I preferred Taylor's work when she was kind of hitting, then moving straight away. One clean shot, then getting off. And obviously she was winning some of the exchanges, losing some of the others. It was a close fought contest, but I preferred Taylor's work when she was landing clean and moving away. And she managed to do that for prolonged periods. But Serrano is a very strong, very skilled fighter. She managed to track her down plenty in there. So, yeah, great fight. Great fight. And as for the headbutts or the use of the head, because Taylor was basically diving in for the clinch a lot of times, and because they're fighting in an open stance, there's always that risk of the head clash coming in. I do think that the point deduction was warranted, to be honest. But whether it was malicious or whether she was just trying to get a strong head position to kind of kill Serrano's activity in the clinch. I remember watching a video with Gennady Golovkin a good few years ago talking about that same kind of keeping your head into their neck and positioning them in the clinch until the referee separates you, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I think the point deduction was warranted. Close fight. I had it for Taylor.
Sad day. The world weeps with your scorecard. Let's see. I thought that Serrano did the better work, and I feel that these judges on there were very inexperienced judges too. Let's go and look up their names. I was just looking at this card. Let's go look at that one. The judges in this fight. Let's see here. Where the hell are they? Yeah, they're not listed in your stupid freaking. But anyways, they were very inexperienced. Oh, there they are. Jeremy Hayes, Nathan Palmer, and Jesse Reyes. So I was not particularly impressed with what they did in their scorecards. Interesting. As you said, James, there's many swingy rounds, but this one, if you're Amanda Serrano, this sticks in your craw. And she had no jokes about her in this fight. She didn't come with this is crazy attitude. She came and just purely went to fight. And Des, I got to say, if there's anything that I think might have made people score it one way or the other, some of us score body work, some of us don't.
It was a close fight, though, wasn't it? You know, you got what James is saying is very responsible and very sensible.
I don't see 6 rounds. Like, I just not by the numbers either.
I didn't see it. I had it Serrano just nicking it, but I'm really glad we're talking about boxing again. I feel so out of my comfort zone talking about this misfit stuff and Jake Paul stuff. I don't really know where I am with it, but this was a brilliant fight on a really good production, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the first one. I didn't think it could get any better, but this one matched it. It was fantastic. I noticed that Katie Taylor was circling to her right in the first 2 or 3 rounds. And that really plays into Serrano's hands because she's a southpaw and she's got that great backhand. And when a fighter's stationary, a southpaw throws that backhand straight. But when you're circling, you allow the southpaw to put a bit of an arc on it, and it becomes a backhand with a bit of a hook to it. And Serrano was using that. And she buzzed Taylor several times in the first 3 rounds. I gave Serrano the first 3 rounds. And then with the point deduction, you could argue that's 4 rounds. Although I thought Katie Taylor was winning the round that she had the point deducted in. I thought Serrano nicked it, but it was a close fight. And I can't argue that Taylor got it because it was a close one. I think there was some irresponsible language in the commentary team. And I think it was very pro Serrano. And I think if you're in that crowd, you can get taken away with that atmosphere a little bit. I think we should decipher this, though. Katie Taylor didn't headbutt Serrano. There was a clash of heads. There is a slight difference. It's very nuanced. Katie Taylor does lead with her head, but she's not headbutting. They're just coming together because that's what happens when southpaws and orthodox fighters fight. Your shins clash and your forearms clash and your heads can clash. And it just so happens that Katie Taylor really knows how to look after herself in that predicament.
And she's got a huge dome. She really does. Serrano's Taylor is not incorrect. Chick has a big head.
She does, but she's a very good fighter. She's a rough ass. She's tough. She can hold a shot well. She can hit. You know, like, and don't forget, Serrano's jumping up 3 weights to do this. It was like, when I say irresponsible language, it's because I think Serrano apologized afterwards, and I think her trainer apologized for their comments in the ring. We don't need that, not after a brilliant fight. And I know it's very partisan. I know everybody was behind Serrano, and you had Rosie Perez on comms, and
commentary was terrible.
It was.
All night
It was
terrible.
It was, and there was a lot of there was a lot of divisive language, and it didn't need to be because it was a brilliant fight between two elite athletes.
If you're Amanda Serrano and you fought 20 rounds with Katie Taylor the way she does, and she has only won one scorecard.
Yeah, but that
how
happens
do
in close
you
fights, mate.
feel? What fucking more do you have to do?
That happens in close fights, Matty. Someone's got to win, someone's got to lose. There's no entitled
but there's
right.
no rhyme or reason as we talk about it. She landed more punches as a come forward fighter by everything that is done. Is said about the sport of boxing in how it works. She should have won that fight. She landed the cleaner, more effective shots. She landed more of them. She bossed the ring, the generalship more often than not. The body language of Taylor got worse as the fight wore on.
But Matty, Matty, you've gone into this area of subjectivity now. You talk about body language and like I get the stats. Look, I had Serrano winning. Let's be clear, but I live by a very simple rule with boxing: close fights can never be robberies. And this was. Do we accept, Matty? This was a close one.
No, I don't see a universe where Serrano doesn't win 6 rounds.
So you think that fight wasn't close?
No, I would say the fight that this reminds me the most of when I look at the scorecards and think what the fuck was Lucas Matisse against Devin Alexander. I don't buy it. No.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, look, and that's your opinion. You was there and you know your boxing, but I thought Serrano nicked it, but it's not an outrage. It's not a scandal. And when you look at the stats and you look at across 20 rounds, he's only been given one card. I get that argument. Tony Sims said it about John Ryder, didn't he? You know, a few years ago. All these judges seem to see it the absolute opposite way. I get that, but it's a 2-horse race. Someone's got to win, someone's got to lose. You've got to score for someone. I can see why Serrano thinks, wow, on another day, that sliding door moment could have been for me, but it wasn't. 2 close fights, 2 brilliant fights, 2 excellent boxers. I mean, it wasn't just a good women's fight. It was a good boxing match. It was brilliant for the sport. But I just think Katie nicked a close one.
Yeah, I'll tell you, the people leaving the arena, as much as they were pissed off about Tyson, they were more pissed off about this decision. And all the people in the airport today, too, were more pissed off about this decision than about the Tyson fight. To give you an idea of the people who were there. And it leaves a bad taste in your mouth.
One thing you can't deny about Katie Taylor is she does tend to get the close decision. So that's where I can absolutely understand Serrano's frustration. And yeah, it was a close fight, but again, that could have been a draw and I wouldn't be complaining. There's 2 or 3 rounds in it either way. Where Serrano could probably be a little bit aggrieved is the cut and whether that's intentional. I completely agree with Des. But like, whether is that a legitimate tactic to lead with your head? Do you know what I mean? To initiate a clinch from far out. Should she have been deducted the point? Like, what do you guys think about that?
Yes, and I would argue that John Ruiz didn't get enough points taken in his career.
Yeah, fair enough. So, like, that, at what point does that prohibit like extensive inside fighting, etc.? Like, where would you draw the line in that kind of scenario? Do you understand what I mean? Because Katie Taylor had to do something to stop Serrano coming forward, and she chose to clinch with her. But it kind of made her look like a dirty fighter. But I don't think it did. But that seems to be the consensus, if you know what I mean.
There's a reason that they penalize for excessive clinching, because there is a concept of excessive clinching. And it is up to the judge, or the ref, to determine what that is too. And the fact that she's coming in with her head like that brings it in to a whole different realm. And I guess you kind of have to separate it between what is a flagrant use of the head and what is an unnecessary, like an unsafe use of the head, kind of like Josh Warrington. Does he walk that line? We question it. So, but there's a reason that they take points for excessive holding. There's a reason they take points for using your head on your opponent, and that needs to be part. And it does need to be taken care of. And part of it is just to keep the sport alive, because people, they hate clinching in fights. So, yeah, I think that there's a reason that it is the way it is, and it needs to be handled that way. And again, her fight against her last fight against Chantel Cameron, people make the same argument. Too much holding, should have had a point deducted. So,
is she the de facto home fighter wherever she fights? Do you think because of her reputation and because of her status as a pioneer in women's boxing, do you think that it's likely that she will always get the benefit of the doubt if it goes to the cards?
A lot of the times, I mean, the first Cameron fight, I could have had an argument and she didn't get it right, but yeah, I don't know. There was no real home fighter in here. I mean, because there's not a lot of Puerto Ricans in the Dallas area. I mean, obviously there's some. They're huge, numbers in like the New York, northern New Jersey area, and in Puerto Rico and Florida, but not in Dallas. So, yeah, I mean, there was people in the crowd with some Irish flags here and there. She didn't bring a huge contingent with her, but her entrances sure fucking bring the energy down in the place. Jesus Christ.
Grim, mate. The hymns. The hymn walk. Yeah, it's not great, man.
Yeah, it just is. Yeah, not for me. But apparently she does have God on her side, or God and the judges at least. Ames, what are your thoughts on the fight?
Yeah, I didn't particularly score it. I just kind of watched it because I wasn't watching it in real time. And not that I scored Jake Paul, Mike Tyson either. Look, I thought this is outside of kind of winners and losers in the fight. I thought it was a real a fight where both women delivered on what it was advertised, where the main event, I guess, maybe faltered. Like I mentioned there, Netflix, if they're looking to continue into boxing, women's boxing, whatever type of boxing it may be, they should take a good hard look at this and say, look, we want more of this. And the crowd respond. To endeavor, determination, blood, guts, and thunder, and that's exactly what they got. And it will always entertain. That's the product that will always entertain without fail. So if you get the mix right, you get the fights right, then you're onto a winning result. And that's what both women did. Katie's ability to be able to, even though she's clearly on the downhill slide towards her inevitable retirement, has still got this knack of being able to manage those 2-minute rounds and fighting those flurries and be first and last. And not many fighters have been able to take her out of that rhythm, apart from the best fighter to have ever taken her out of that rhythm and been first and last was Delphine Pursoon. I believe beat her twice. Serrano's tried, and Serrano, I think, was landing some real good shots, like in between Katie Taylor's straight punches. And the problem with the tactics when it comes to Serrano is because she's so small, diminutive, and she's got the shorter arms. The straight shots will always beat the wider shots, but she has to kind of find those moments and pick them. But because Katie Taylor's flurries just don't really end, she's able to pick that pace because she can manage those rounds. The gaps are frequent, but you've got to take those opportunities. And when you've got that cut on the eye, which is then bothering you, it changed the fight. And it changed the way I thought before that Serrano was really getting on top of those moments. And then after that, Katie Taylor just was able to get into more of the ascendancy. She's got a good motor on her as well, Katie does. And she's clearly energized by the fans as well, too. I think she loves those types of atmospheres. What I hope to get from this fight is maybe the third between the two ladies, and they could have that over in Ireland. They can have that in an arena that holds more than 9,000, and maybe Katie Taylor sets off in the sunset. Although it's a 2-0 on the scorecards of the fights that they had, it's not a true reflection as Matty and a lot of other people will suggest, and that's fair. That's fair with it. So have that third fight. And I think did they not say in the post-fight in the interviews that they'd agreed between the two of them that the next time that they fight, should they fight, and hopefully that they do, that it'll be over 3 minutes? Have I made that up completely?
I don't know. I've heard rumors that they're talking about a rematch, and then Amanda wants it to be as an MMA fight.
That's not going to happen. You're not going to get Katie Taylor in an MMA ring. No,
and Amanda would beat the shit out of her in an MMA ring too. I think she's undefeated.
I don't think 3 minutes suits Katie Taylor either.
No,
not the way she fights. Not the way she fights, Ames. And I think Katie spoke about this. So what you're referring to, Ames, I've been privy to the same conversations and the same interviews. I think Katie Taylor was asked about it, and she was quite not one way or the other, but I think she said of the two options, 3 or 2 minutes, I'd probably prefer the 2. That was the feeling I got from Katie Taylor. I don't think 3 minutes would suit her, Ames.
Let me double check it again, and it's one for the next pod. I'll put it in the comments of the podcast. But I thought she said it like in the immediate post-fight interview with Helwani or whoever was doing it. That they said they agreed.
Right.
I mean, I was up late. I was up early with minimal sleep, so maybe I misheard something.
No, my recollection of it goes back about 18 months when this conversation came up.
Yeah, she always says like, look, if you're gonna make if it's gonna be 3 minutes, I want more money. I want more money for my minute.
Yeah.
So, and I get that, but now you're getting that money. That's the thing. That's the difference, and you're getting the eyes and the viewership. So maybe they can get Katie Taylor into that ring for 3 minutes per round in the future. But that makes sense for me. Like, how many fighters you get to have a trilogy, and it being such an emotionally charged trilogy. Where so many people around the world are accustomed to you and what you bring, your brand of fighting now. It makes complete sense to do that third fight again over, unfortunately, a Chantal Cameron, over, unfortunately, a Tasha Jonas, over another. This is the fight I think is for the both of them. And then Katie Taylor, I think, then eventually hangs up the gloves and lives out a legacy of being a brilliant ambassador for the sport.
Matthew, something Ames said there is a really good point. When you if you're a 100-meter sprinter, your max effort is up to 60 meters. Then after 60 meters, it's about how slowly you decline. So depending on a 4th place, 3rd place finish, bronze to gold, it's about who declines the slowest. Some sprinters fall off a cliff and some come down very gradually. I think Katie Taylor's very good at that. When she gets into her peak at around 4 or 5 in a hard fight, she knows how to hang tough and she doesn't come off a cliff. She's almost better when she's in the eye of the storm. She knows how to look after herself and operate better when both fighters are gassed out and they're throwing everything at each other. That's where Katie Taylor comes into her own. We've seen it against Jonas. We see it against Cameron. We've seen it twice against Serrano. It's a good point Ames makes there. She's really comfortable when she's peaked out and she's just coming down slowly.
That's interesting. I will say I think down the stretch that Katie is kind of losing energy. She is getting touched more. I would definitely prefer, if I was her team, I would definitely fight Serrano over Cameron, because Cameron is definitely the bigger fighter. And I don't think anybody is going to deny that in these two fights, Taylor has been hurt a couple of times in each fight. And I think it's only a matter of time until she might get hurt badly. Maybe not by Amanda, because she is a smaller fighter, which is why I try to explain to people what she is doing is absolutely fucking incredible.
Correct.
But Cameron is not a smaller person, and I think she's pissed about that last decision, and she's out to kick ass if she gets a third opportunity. So anyhow, that was a great fight, and it was entirely worth being there for that.
Don't be too disheartened, Matty.
I enjoyed it a lot. It was a great fight. Just went the wrong way.
You coming to Ireland for the third?
No, I'm not coming to Ireland for the third.
Why not?
If I yelled the things during that fight that I did in Ireland, I'd probably get my ass kicked. Well, there's no probably about it.
Did you say kissed or kicked?
Kicked.
Okay.
I was very upset at the fucking the decision. Anyhow, that might be a story for a different day. But just got tapped on the shoulder. Why do you not like that Katie Taylor? It's not that I don't like her that much. I like Serrano a lot more, and I'm getting fucking tired of her all the time.
Did you have a bet on?
No, I didn't bet on that. I try to avoid betting on fights where I have an emotional feeling towards the fighter. Like, I'm a huge Serrano fan, so I wouldn't be able to bet rationally. I thought I scored rationally though, because everybody else fucking agreed.
Did you have any bets on?
I lost all of them.
Oh well, duh. But what bets did you have on?
Well, let's see. What was? Well, we're not on that. I think they were all on the Saudi card.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we don't get to talk about them yet. Ha 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 ha. We'll get to my follies before you know it. Let's see here. What else do we want to talk about? That one, I know not everybody on the show watched it, but they need to. Mario Barrios against Abel Ramos was a fantastic fight. It looked like Barrios was going to get Ramos out of there. He hurt him in the first round, almost dropped him. If you look at the glove, it just seemed to avoid touching the canvas. The ref incorrectly went and stepped in at that point in time, and he should have allowed Barrios to keep going. I don't know if that necessarily changes anything, but that was just a poor job by the ref. The Texas Commission kind of blows in general, but what are you going to do? And then he was able to knock him down in the might have been the next round, and then Ramos knocked him down, I believe, in the sixth, and it was just kind of a war from there. What a great fight to experience. I had it 114-112 Barrios. It ended up being a 113-113 draw. I can't argue with it. I thought that Barrios probably closed the stronger of the two fighters. I don't think that James or Des saw it. Ames, I believe you said that you had a chance to watch this fantastic undercard fight.
I flicked through a lot of it, so again, I can't give you a full reflection of it. But Mario Barrios, for me, he's such a good fighter to watch. He gives you, like we've talked about the two ladies beforehand as well, gives you everything in a fight. And those are his defensive frailties, as well as him being on the front foot and trying to get for a knockout. That's what Mario Barrios is always trying to set up with his volume punches. And
he's beat some good fighters too. I mean, Akhmedov, as we found, as we keep learning. I mean, how many fighters with only 10 wins and that many losses are as good as Akhmedov?
That's right. And he's always giving you that entertainment value, but he always pays the price for it with his face. He always seems to get marked up and hurt and puffed up in fights, and they all seem to sort of kind of change the fight in some way for Mario. I wonder how much longer he can continue taking such big punishment and dishing out, and eventually all kind of catch up on him. To be fair, I thought he'd done well to climb up with the canvas after sending Ramos crashing down the canvas as well and finish the fight off. But no, there's a real good entertaining affair between both of them. A draw. Probably just about fair, I think.
I think I said I had a 114-112, and I legitimately thought it could have gone either way. I thought this fight was way more legitimately closed, but scored even rounds than Taylor Serrano, for instance. So,
yeah, no, I agree. It was a close fight. No robbery on this one, Matty. But yeah, look, run it again. I know Barrios will probably think he's got bigger fish to fry and wants to maybe unify or go for it. I know certainly Ben's been calling out his name for a fight. But when the division's as wide as open as it's probably ever been with talent diminishing 147, you feel like Mario Barrios can probably pick up another title in the future, or at least fight for one pretty soon.
No, he has the title. He's the WBC titleist.
Yeah, another title.
Oh, another title. Yeah. I think, even though I think he would lose the fight, I believe the fight to make would probably be him against Amanda Stanionis. I think if he has any advantage against Stanionis, it's the fact that he's been more active, and Stanionis has had an incredible number of just wasted camps, So But I'd like to see him make that fight. Yeah, people who haven't seen this one, definitely a worthy watch from the undercard.
Mate, do you think he beats Ben?
Do I think Mario Barrios beats Conor Benn?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I once upon a time took Barrios to beat Tank, and I thought that he was incredibly competitive in that fight.
He was.
So yeah, I'm high on him. I took him to beat Ugas too. I think, if I recall, that was on the undercard of Crawford versus Spence, so I would have been there to see that live.
Mm-hmm.
I think. Been a long time. Been a long year and a half. My God.
And Barrios is really close with Bam Rodriguez, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so. I think they might both. I don't know if they train out of the same gym or what, but they might have. I'm trying to remember where their connection might be from. I can't recall.
Isn't it the 210? Is that an area code?
Oh, is that in Arizona? Maybe.
Yeah, I think it might be.
No, they're both from Texas.
Texas,
they're both from Texas. Yeah, yeah. I think they're both from like San Antonio-ish area, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I have a hard time remembering all these facts. At least I remember where I live. That's why I always tell myself every day, if I can't remember where I live, we got problems. So
yeah, no, Ben. I think Barrios and Ben is a good fight, as Mike Thompson is saying here, and I'd back Barrios to beat Ben right now. With Ben as well, I think you have to say like the first few 3-4 rounds probably be sharp, and with Barrios shipping a load of punishment as well too in these fights, like you always worry with cuts and bruises and things, but should still have enough in the tank to beat Ben.
The thing about Barrios, well, where he got in trouble with Ramos as far as goes is that Ramos only has about an inch shorter reach than he does, and Barrios is a much taller fighter. So basically, even though he's much taller, they're going to be forced to fight at the same range, and that kind of throw you off a little bit with people with the long reach. But if you run into somebody as your tall fighter with the longer reach, Barrios has a nice snappy jab against those guys, and Ben is just what it's been 5'7", 5'8". I think that Barrios can fight tall and win that fight walking away personally.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So let's see here. Also on that undercard, I got to see Shadeja Green win her first title against Melinda Watpool. Very close fight, split decision. I lean towards Green, but I think that one could have gone either way. Some of the rounds.
This fight wasn't good, Matty. Was it you suggesting that Watpool might have been tough for Green or some others?
I did. I said she might be worth a friendly bet, a 5 or a 10.
Either that, and it was a close fight, and I think one card said that Watpool had got the nod there. Correct. But she was no great shakes either. I mean, she sort of built her way into the fight as well too, but she was also pretty poor when it comes to like adverts for women's boxing. Like this is going the other way with, and it just shows we've all said it all before about the depth of women's boxing, but her opponent just had the air of, when was it Erica Cruz come in and just splattered that poor lady within 7 seconds? Like the way she was squaring up and the way she just held her form, she looked like she'd just come out of a boxing class.
No, that was Sinisa Estrada who did that with the record for the fastest knockout in women's history.
Just for some context, James, I always remember Ozzy. I've only ever bet on women's boxing once, and it was when Ozzy suggested Rachel Ball at 7-1 might beat Shannon Courtenay, and he said it's worth a tenner. And I did put a tenner on it, and I thought, well done, Ozzy, good shout. And I looked at this one, and having seen Green, I thought she might get caught out here, and she nearly did.
Yeah, Green's not that great either. I agree.
And it's not really about this. This sort of bet was always about two pretty bad fighters, one catching the other out. Similar to Rachel Ball and Shannon Courtenay, very similar situation.
Well, Shadeja Green is good at distance, if she's able to get off first. But if you do like Franchon Cruz DAZN did to her, and you're able to get off first and close the distance and make it a little bit sloppy, she struggles a whole lot. And Walpole did that at moments, but wasn't able to do it throughout the fight. I thought when Green got behind the jab that she won it pretty easily in those rounds. But I didn't think the scorecards were absurd. Let's see here. I'm not going to talk about Niraj Goyat and Henderson Nunez. We already mentioned it. So yeah, other than that, I walked in with Bruce Carrington, was finishing his fight with Dana Coolwell, dropped him in the last round. Apparently dropped him in the fourth as well. Won every round on all the scorecards. And then a fight, also another fight that the crowd did not agree with the conclusion was Lucas Badi against Armando Casamonica. Casamonica coming on in late notice for Corey Marksman, who I actually thought might have given Badi quite a lot of troubles as well. Made the puncher look quite ordinary at times, and I think he probably won 6 rounds in there. So I don't know if anybody else caught that fight, but it was reasonably good fight. I thought that was all right, but I did think that Casamonica should have won, but he got the wrong end of a majority decision, unfortunately.
Yeah, this is a fight where it could have been a bit of value to be had as well too. And I was sort of looking at Casamonica because the body was, and Silva's a lot more of a technical, different type of movement sort of fighter.
Well, and he didn't win a minute of the fight before he fucking landed that shot against him either. That's
right. But he found the shot and he's got a bit of power. And you thought maybe like with Italian fighters, there aren't too many great Italian fighters.
No offense taken for sure.
No, yeah, none meant either. So you don't really know what you're getting either. And I sort of had a look at Casamonica. I had a look at a couple of fights, and the first thing that struck out to me, and it struck out to me on the night, is like, this guy is yoked. This guy is huge. He's got these long, wide shoulders, big biceps, big shoulders as well too. And you're thinking maybe this guy can transition that into being able to punch a little bit and really get some digs in. And then you look at his record, and he's only got a couple of knockouts, and it was highlighted on the I think it was by Roy Jones Jr. as well too, that he felt like the technique was off from Casamonica, and he felt that he wasn't punching with the correct part of his knuckles and more slapping with his punches. Maybe that's the truth. Roy knows better than I do, and had a better eye for it as well too, being there. But that's what it showed as well too, because if he could dig, he seemed like a real competent fighter. And would have had Badi in a lot more trouble. But he seemed to be able to, if he took this on short notice, didn't he? And he gassed out really in that last round. He didn't have anything much left. Maybe that was a little bit of like jitteriness, and maybe he would have had it, but short notice as well too. So you can kind of understand that full tank wasn't quite there. But he really did come on in those mid to later rounds of that fight, and he just was able to just find the holes in Badi's game, and like with Serrano and Taylor, with Taylor specifically, like he was also first and last, and I think he let Badi, who was the counter puncher, go first, and then countered off of that, and then that set up his shots. And then Badi just didn't know when to throw, and like they said as well, I got to echo it in the commentary. They said Badi's looking for that big one big knockout shot, and Casamonica wasn't giving it in, and was able to see it, spot it, and cover up as well too. So yeah, Badi can definitely, Casamonica can definitely feel hard done by. Hopefully gets another opportunity, maybe even that they run it back as well too. The scorecards were rubbish as well on that one. One was like, was it 98, 92? Whatever it was. Or
yeah. You're right. I was like what? You said that, and I'm like, yeah, the scorecards were just not right. Like there's no way that Badi won 8 rounds of that fight. And again, the Texas Commission is not impressive, Ames. It's just not.
Yeah. Yeah, so it wasn't a fair reflection on what Casamonica was able to do. And that's a little bit of a shame as well, because when we're talking about opportunities and fighters and fights, like you mentioned, the good side of Jake Paul is that you've elevated Amanda Serrano's game. You've given her a big fight, given her a big payday. Ashton Silva was a prospect that you're looking to build. All right, Silva got knocked out, so you brought in this Badi fella. So you saw almost like a winner stays on. So Badi then we feel loses to Casamonica. Maybe then you give him the push and give him the rub. And given the result, that didn't happen. But maybe MVP sign him and try and get him another fight in the future.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that made the most of a short notice opportunity there. It's the Italians need somebody. Guido has his moments, but God, Leonard Bundu had some success on the European level. I think he might have been an immigrant, and Italians were weird with that. My poor people. God, here's a name from the past for you, Des. Giacobbe Fragamani.
Yeah, good fighter, good cruiserweight.
Yeah, he was in some wars.
Did he not end up becoming a WBC cruiserweight champion?
Yeah, he was champion.
And
I think he might have lost it to Woldarczyk for some reason.
And he got David Haye defended a European title against Fragamani. Good fighter, Fragamani, and I think he went to an Olympics as well.
Yeah, let's see here.
But not the best Italian boxer I've ever seen. Who's the best Italian boxer I've ever seen?
Oh, God, that's a good question. If you're going on proper lineage, that Argentine boxer, Lochte was definitely a fucking Dago.
but the one I've personally seen, the best Italian boxer I've ever seen. I'll give you a clue. He's the only man in history who's got an Olympic bronze, silver, and gold.
That's a great trivia question, and I have no answer.
Ames, are you familiar with him, or James?
No, not at all.
He's an Italian policeman, and he got Olympic bronze, Olympic silver, and Olympic gold at super heavyweight, and he's Camarelli, and he's a brilliant fighter.
Really?
Did Joshua fight him?
Joshua jobbed him in London 2012. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I know that name from. Oh, mad! That is a good pub trivia quiz question, though.
Brilliant fighter, Camarelli. Italian policeman, and he's the only guy to get all three colours.
That's kind of mad. As a professional, though, who would you have? I can't think of many. Maybe Antifermo. But would you put him down as Italian or American, James? I don't know. I remember hearing one of those anecdotes about him. He's like, just put my name on a postcard and just have my name on it, and it will find its way to me in Italy or something like that. But sorry, mate. Go on. Sorry, I cut across you. No, I just assumed he lived in Italy, but now that you say that, he could be Italian American.
I think he was. I think he was part of the New York scene when he had Traffermo. I think there was an Italian fighter. I put it up on a chat once, who was a defensive genius, and I think I can't remember his name. I have to pull it out, but he might be regarded as the best Italian, the true Italian, to sort of be born in Italy, raised in Italy, and fight out of Italy. But I can't remember his name. Someone in the chat might remember it. But he was a defensive genius, and he was Italian's best ever boxer.
Is that Paulie Malignaggi? Yeah.
Oh, go on then. Frank Buglione is my favourite Italian boxer.
Joe Calzaghe, come on, you got to give.
If you're going to go down that road, you
got to give the Italian Wiz and Wills some love there. Yeah. They have created a few good fighters with that group there. But Arturo Gatti, he was I think he was half Italian, half Lebanese, might have been.
Great mixture.
Yeah. And am I right in thinking, though, if we're going to start going down this, it's like the Irish, isn't it? Bless them. There's so many out all around the world. It's like the Poles. There's so many all around the world. I think we could probably find an Italian in an awful lot of really good fighters, but actual ones that are born in Italy, grew up in Italy, come through the Italian amateur system and box out of Italy, is quite few and far between, isn't it?
Yeah, the problem with Italy is the economy gets so shitty at various times that there's a mass exodus of all the people who work hard, and they're left with everyone else. And yeah,
but if anyone in the chat wants to look it up, Roberto Camarelli, he was the Olympic super heavyweight rep for Italy for about 3 Olympic cycles, and he was outstanding. And he was the one that he beat David Price. I think he got jobbed against Joshua, and I think it was in Seoul, in Beijing, he got his gold. He's a very good fighter, Camarelli.
Now, interesting fact about Fragamani, Des, I was looking up his career. His pro career started when he was 32 years old.
Did he spend it in the amateurs? He spent a lot of time in the amateurs, didn't he, Matty? I would have thought.
I believe so on that one. But the
yeah.
fact
See, I think the reason being for Matty is because Italy, France, Turkey, Germany, they used to really look after their elite amateurs. Like they had wonderful lives. Like Roberto Camarelli, case example. Being a policeman, he gets his policeman wages, his policeman pension, his policeman perks, and they say to him, well, actually, have as much time off as you want, go and box for Italy, get all the perks that come with that, and go and win us a gold medal. So it's like representing the army almost. So when you're in like France, Italy, Germany, places like that. So I think the lure's not always there to turn pro. And I think Fragomeni probably had a wonderful deal in the amateurs, and he probably turned pro just last.
Actually, he had his first amateur fight in 91, and then he had a 6-year break. He came out of the amateurs. His total amateur record is 7-6. Okay, and I'm working backwards. I'm working from 1997 up through the end, because these are some names on there. And Des, you might know some more of these names. Some are nobodies, but I'll just go through them for whatever. So when he came back in 97 to the AMs, he lost to Chagayev. Then in 98, he lost to Felix Savone. Then he lost to Kwamini.
Wow.
Then he lost to Kwamini Turkson. Then a guy named Evgeny Makarenko, Sergei Dichko, Najati Belahul, Hildo Silva. I assume that might have been in Italy because those are might be immigrant names.
Sorry, Matty. So did you say he's only had 7 amateur bouts?
Yeah, no, 7-6 was his record. Then he fought Felix Savone again. Then he fought Chagayev again, and this is in 1999. A guy named Karen Spield, Kevin Evans, Vladimir Chinturia. Then he beat David Hay in the AMs in 2000, and then he lost to an Isael Alvarez. And then his cruiserweight resume is filled with all sorts of names too.
Right. So is that coming off a box rec, Matty?
Yep.
Yeah. So what that is international record. So for example, he might have had 60, 70 amateur bouts before he goes. And what you're seeing there, because you don't fight Felix Savon or David Hay or Shagayev if you're like a 2-bouter. So what's happened is
he's not some dick off the street, right?
No. Even the Italians wouldn't do that to him. So what's happened here is he's had an extensive amateur career, probably won a couple of Italian titles. He's been called up to the Italian squad, and what you're seeing there, 7-6, is his international record or his major championship record. So when he fought Savon, he'd have fought Savon in a major championships. When he fought David Hay, he probably fought David Hay in the Worlds or in multi-nations. So what you've got in front of you, 7-6, is his international record. But outside of that, he's probably had about 60, 70 amateur bouts as well.
That's good. There's got to be something in that stretch of time in there between 91 and 90.
Because I promise you, he didn't just rock up and say, "Oh, look, you're fighting Felix Savon next weekend." It didn't just go like that.
Oh, hell. That was a fun, hardcore detour right there. But we better, given we're an hour and a half in, get to the Latino night card from part of Riyadh season there. The main event, Gilberto Ramirez, surprising all of us. Well, maybe all of us, at least Des and I, just beating the crap out of CBS down the stretch after a first round where every punch that touched him seemed to move him and maybe damage him. But after that, it was almost all Zerto. I think the scorecards are basically all 116, 112, whatever. Maybe there was an even one in there with the 113, 116. But this was a fight where CBS landed some shots, but Gilberto Ramirez just lit him up. James, this was a fight I thought could have been stopped at multiple times. And I tell you, James, when it comes to taking a whooping, it's better to take 3 rounds in one shot with a puncher than 12 rounds of pure punishment like we saw yesterday in this cruiserweight unification.
Yeah, it started quite well for Chris Billam-Smith, but despite his natural size advantage, he just seemed a step behind Ramirez from quite early on. Now, it's going to be ridiculous to criticize Chris Billam-Smith because he's basically like a world-class athlete, but in comparison to Ramirez, who was a little bit fleshy at the weight. He's probably caught between weights a little bit there, between light heavy and cruiserweight. But Ramirez was the smoother, more coordinated fighter, and picking his shots a little bit more efficiently, and his footwork was a little bit tidier. And when Chris Billam-Smith was forcing forward, he always seemed like half a second behind. Maybe it was, I don't know if that's a decision-making thing or a physicality, coordination, athleticism issue. But from quite early on, I think Ramirez established a pattern of like finishing with hooks, much like Serrano did, actually quite similar, like sometimes arcing the backhand and then stepping to the outside, pivoting round. And then that was pretty much the pattern of the fight. I mean, Chris Billam-Smith like tried, but it was a bit of a beatdown, really, to be honest. I mean, like, he was obviously brave and obviously willing to march forward to get the result we wanted, but Ramirez was like the superior fighter, clearly. And yeah, I agree. He could have got the stoppage at several points, but yeah, I don't know what's, because Billam-Smith, his recent results, it seems as if he's been overachieving a little bit. Like, especially against people like Okoli. Like, Okoli's a pretty scary fighter on his day. And, you know, Chris Billam-Smith used that, probably the former association between McGuigan and Okoli to his advantage, fought out of his skin. You know, was very brave that night as well, very decisive. Then Riakporhe avenging a defeat from earlier in his career. He's on the crest of a wave, realistically. But Ramirez, I think he came into this contest with like a 46-1 record, and that brings with it a certain amount of poise and a certain amount of composure, so you can have a few rough rounds and get back.
He's only lost to Bivol. He's had some close ones, but he's only lost to Bivol.
Yeah, you know, and that's not, you can say, we know that professional fighters from Mexico tend to start young and perhaps at the expense of the amateur experience that we were just talking about. They rack up that experience in the paid ranks. And I think it really showed, man, the difference between them. I was quite shocked before the fight when they showed Chris Billam-Smith's record as 20-1, which I thought that's comparatively few fights. So his experience, even though he's coming in with a world title, you'd have to say that Ramirez was by far and away the more experienced fighter, probably still somewhere near his physical prime, even if he's caught between weights. And it really, really showed. And it was a little bit tough to watch at times.
Yeah, he soaked him up. And Dez, it was killing me. I'm watching him and I'm like, God, I know this style, but he's doing it so shittily. I don't know who it's like emulating him. Like, oh, CBS is doing a shitty Joshua Clottey.
Yeah, good comparison. And he made he made Ramirez look like a peak James Toney last night. He got it all wrong last night, Billam-Smith, and it's a good job Ramirez has been relatively inactive over the last 2.5 years, because if it had been hot, I think it'd have put Billam-Smith away last night in about 8 rounds, because he was so active, he was so live, everything he threw landed, and he grew in the fight. And a lot of that growing in confidence come about because of Billam-Smith's tactics. Now, Billam-Smith had a really good first round. He fought like the bigger man. He fought on the front foot. But the more I think about it, I think Ramirez might have been having a look at him, and they just made slight adjustments. And for the next 3 rounds, Ramirez kept hitting Billam-Smith every time he stepped forward. So what that did, it created a reaction in Billam-Smith to go backwards. But you couldn't give Ramirez distance last night. You couldn't allow Ramirez to pick his shots without pressure. And that's what he did for about 4 rounds. And it was, I think, in the corner at the end of round 4, Shane said to Chris, you can't give this guy any room. You're going to have to walk him down. But by then, you've got a 4 rounds beaten Billam-Smith who's been touched. And you've got a Ramirez who's now found a pattern and he's enjoying that lovely lateral movement he had. and he's working angles and he's bringing them up and he's just touching him all the time, and he really enjoyed himself. And going into round 7 or 8, I agree with James. He was getting uncomfortable to watch because he was just bouncing left hands and right hands off of Billam-Smith's face. Billam-Smith last night got it tactically wrong. He didn't know he was fighting a southpaw. He didn't know he was fighting a smaller guy with really good lateral movement that understood angles. And he didn't know how to press intelligently. Now, there's a way of doing that. You've got to throw in a few feints. You've got to try and, if you're going to walk forward, so it's sort of step, and just little jerk, and allow Ramirez to throw. And then as he throws, you come over the top. But he didn't do that. He'd done everything in straight lines. He'd become very predictable. And there's something that happens to a fighter in a fight like that. You know you're getting beat. And then what happens at about round 8 is you think, I'm just going to survive this one. That's my badge of honor, surviving. And that's what pretty much happened. And Ramirez, the kid we've seen at 68, 75, and now up at 200, showed all the style and finesse and class of a kid that's travelled through the weights. I think you said it, Matty, in the group chat. Do you think the Bivol loss actually sharpened him up? 100%.
His footwork is way better than it used to be. My God,
so much better. And what we saw from Ramirez last night, if we can keep Ramirez active, if we can get him out 3 times, 2 times in the next 9 to 10 months, I think he gives Opataya a really interesting fight, because the fighter I saw last night had pretty much every punch in the book. He knew about hands and feet. He knew about angles. He knew how to step off. He knew how to fight in close. And if you gave him room, he was more dangerous. I think he's a good fighter, and he only gets better, but he's got to stay active. The last 2.5 years, he hasn't been overly busy. That could change now because he's got a world title around him. But it was a brilliant performance. What I would like to say is, last week on this pod, I said, I've never backed Billam-Smith. I didn't think he'd beat Chamberlain. I didn't think he'd beat Riakport. I didn't think he'd beat Akoli. Truth be told, the way McCarthy handled him in the first one, I thought if McCarthy has a good camp, he might get to him in the second one. He always proves me wrong, Billam-Smith. And I went for him this week, and it was the worst version of Billam-Smith. But I'm also going to say this. Now, I don't want to hit people over the head, but it's the second time I've seen it with a Shane McGuigan fighter. When it's not going their way, Shane McGuigan doesn't have a plan B. And against Willie Hutchins, Spider Richards did the same thing over and over. And last night, Billam-Smith did the same thing over and over. So I know Shane's a good fighter, a good trainer with the best kids, and that's what he generally gets. But I want to see what happens when he's got a kid of limited ability behind in a fight. That's when I'd like to see what Shane's made of. But last night was a bad day at the office for everyone in the Chris Billam-Smith business. But it was a brilliant night for Ramirez.
Yeah, it was. And I liked, what I really liked from Ramirez is that variance in his left hand was exceptional. He shot it to the head from multiple angles, but I kind of think, as if you think about adding it up down the stretch, that straight left he was sinking into Billam-Smith's body was what really changed that fight. I'll just suck the wind and take the legs right out of you.
Didn't he remind you a little bit of, and I'm careful about these type of comparisons, but didn't it remind you a little bit, if you think back to when James Toney fought with Vander Holyfield? He just found every punch he threw landed, and he seemed to enjoy himself in there on the job.
Yeah, and Tony was a great fighter, and you don't know what's going to happen one night to the next. But Ramirez and Tony on their respective nights, it was just like they were living in the Matrix, and they saw everything differently. Everything their opponent,
correct,
yeah.
Absolutely right.
Yeah, and Donaire had a couple of those nights too. I think Fernando Montiel and Nonito Donaire is one of those as well.
But for an inactive fighter like Ramirez, you're right. You're living in a matrix. Last night, Ramirez could have boxed for 30 rounds, couldn't he? He was enjoying himself.
Yeah, he's just this chubby Mexican guy in Saudi Arabia boxing this dude's ears off and hurting him along the way. It was a heck of a thing to see, honestly, and surprised a lot of people, except not the bookmakers. We thought, like, God, they're foolish, but they had him a favorite for a reason, and here we are the next day. But anyhow, Mr. Rob Kelly has joined us, and Rob, we have discussed everything on the Tyson Paul card and just the main event on Riyadh season. So feel free to give us your takes on all those things, and we'll move forward with the rest of the guys.
We haven't discussed Matty's parlays yet.
I lost my $5.
Well, fuck. Yeah, you'll come again. Jay can't. The Tyson Paul event. I kind of feel. I probably didn't articulate this the best in the last 2 weeks because it really pained me to talk about it, and I gotta cover it now. Like there was, captured the imagination of the public, or the mainstream public, but not the hardcore. No hardcore boxing fan really wanted to see it apart from Maddie, and people were intrigued by it, but we knew fucking what way it was going to go, and we talk about like Tyson being 58 and what if he could and what if this happens and that happens. And I think like if you're talking about Tyson, you have to fucking remember he was great, maybe one of the greatest, or could have been one of the greatest, but he's not considered one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. Right? So he was great for a very short time. He won the world title in '86
just like
from
the
Berbick.
nation he came from.
Yeah. He won the world title in 1986 against Berbick. Stopped him, had him like a newborn baby going around the ring. He then unified with points wins, by the way, against Tony Tucker, who was a good lad, IBF title, James Bonecrusher Smith for the WBA title. I think that was in reverse order. Then he defended against Pinklin Thomas, who shouldn't have been in the ring with him, smashed him up. Carl the Truth Williams, Tyrell Biggs, you could say, was a legit win. Michael Spinks, former IBF champion, former heavyweight champion, who beat Larry Holmes. But the signs of decline were there as early as maybe 89, right? So 86 to 88, he was untouchable. 89, maybe in the Bruno fight, he was on the slide.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug, Rob.
And so is Robin Givens. Buster Douglas had fucking beaten him in 1990. And the truth be told, he never looked the same after the Douglas fight, right? So that the Holyfield fight was scheduled to happen before he went to jail for that case. That was, I think, Holyfield would have beaten him then. He would have beaten him any version of him after that. He never he lost half a step then, and by the end of his career, he was getting rubbed by fellas who shouldn't have been in the ring with him. Your Julian Williams and fucking not Julian Williams beat him. Danny Williams beat him, and and Kevin McBride drubbed him. It was never going to be anything, and then we find out he's lost like
right
25.
now. He could probably lose to Danny McBride.
Yeah. Oh fucking hell! So yeah, no, like it's this version of him, and then we find out like he nearly died a couple of months ago as well. So painful event. I think it's bad for the sport. It's good for Jake Paul, and the only thing I'd say about this is, if we can do anything to stop this, is just fucking stop talking about it, because the fucking engagement that these guys get on social media, the Paul brothers, like this is what drives their fucking revenue. Like they're social media monsters. They're very aware. They say things for the controversial take. They'll call out the Canelos now and the Carl Frotches, and they'll fucking they'll drive this engagement for themselves. The good thing, I guess, is Mike.
No. Rob, sorry. Carl Froch and other fighters are calling out Jake Paul. They're desperate for the fight.
Yeah, well, Carl Froch is no mug now either. Like he's driving engagement to his old page. I don't think he even really wants a fucking fight with Jake Paul. He's keeping his name in his mouth. But what I'm trying to say is, I guess still stands, is that we need as the boxing world need to ignore this guy. He's the corniest piece of shit I've ever fucking. It's like the undeserved sense of arrogance. And I know it's a work and it's an act and he's playing a heel and all that, but it's just fucking boring as shit. It's not cool. It's just. Oh, it just makes me sick. Anyway,
well, he learned to box because his shtick was getting his ass. It was getting him his ass kicked. Like he had to learn how to fight back.
Yeah, but like we don't have to see it. Learn how to fight behind fucking closed doors. We don't have to fucking. Everything is just like, it's a sick money grab from a privileged kid who already has too much money, and he's using boxing to fucking earn himself tens of millions of dollars each time he fights, and it's a bit. And he couldn't fucking knock snow off a rope with a real fighter. He lost legitimately to Tommy Fury. So I don't want to see or hear from this fucking guy in a boxing ring anymore. I'm glad he helped out Serrano and a lot of his fighters got paid. But to me, it's an abomination. Like, and that fucking, he's a fucking granddad. Like, fuck me. Anyway, so that's why I kind of looked the way I thought it'd look. I thought maybe the fix would be, and it might be a draw or something like that. Serrano and Taylor, I'm going to say the fight's a lot closer than people think. Even though it looked like a razor tight fight, I don't think having Rosie Perez on the commentary is really an unbiased move when Amanda Serrano's fighting and two Puerto Ricans from New York. She was clearly rooting for Serrano. She was focusing on the good work Serrano did, and she was making it look like as if the fucking fight wasn't as close as it was. I would have had no problem with Serrano having her hand raised at the end of the fight. And it would have been a nice way to set up the trilogy. But either way, I think Taylor will want one more fight, and who better to have it against than Amanda Serrano. So, look, Serrano, the two of them left it all in the ring. The seventh round was fucking tremendous action. I don't think Katie Taylor's a particularly dirty fighter. I think the two of them are, the southpaw style and the orthodox style. They clash like that. Both of them dip in head low with their head. They have that kind of still remnants of the amateur style. But a great fight, a great advertisement for women's boxing, and that was entertaining. Then in terms of Riyadh season, have you talked about Tevin Farmer and Zepeda yet?
No. We have only talked
We're
about
getting to that.
we're on CBS and Ramirez right now, so feel free.
So Zerdo, I thought he looked fat and blown up at the weight when I saw him getting into the ring. I said, this guy does not belong at cruiserweight. But then he started to put. I don't know if he made Billam-Smith look like I always thought he would look if he came up against the top guy, and he always just kept proving me wrong, or is Billam-Smith on the slide now and has kind of fucking overachieved in the sport, and this is what happens when he comes up against a guy who kind of is not going to slug it out with him, or not going to let him break it down. He was able to pick his pocket where he needed to, and he was able to step up the work in the right spots and buzz Billam-Smith. And by around the 9th round, I was thinking, is McGuigan going to pull him out here? Because he was cut badly. He looked like his balance was gone, and Zerdo was kind of having his own way. And then Billam-Smith started to kind of come back into it. So I was listening to what they said about McGuigan talking about the adjustments, and I find it, I agree with him, but I find it hard to kind of to understand, because when you see McGuigan talking about other fights, he sees the adjustments and then he makes the call. Maybe it's different when you're in the corner, that way. But I did think that he started to tell him to kind of shorten it up, but it was all a little bit too little, too late. But Chris Billam-Smith has fucking balls like King Kong. He was getting the head pinged off him.
Jesus Christ, dude! Jesus Christ! Yeah, I mean, I'd like. I'd already mentioned this. I'm trying to. I think I might have went to Des first, but I would have rather seen Billam-Smith just get caught by a shot in the 4th or 5th round and call it a day than take those shots over 12. Because that guy who punches hard, but not hard enough to take you out of there over 12 rounds when he's on a good night will take more years off your career than one big punch from a guy who swings.
Yeah, I think it was accumulated damage and you were starting to see the results of it. But balls and grit and determination to, he didn't turn the fight around or whatever, but he shortened fucking Ramirez's work up with a nice dig to the body, I think, in the last third of the fight that kind of froze Ramirez up. He just hadn't got the legs to follow it up at that stage. He tried to put his punches together. I thought he looked very slow, robotic, like he was fighting underwater. Maybe that was the fucking all the punches to the head he was taking, but I just thought he was off a step compared to what we're used to seeing. And he didn't have that kind of he has always had great powers of recovery, but he never didn't have that second wind that he normally gets down the stretch. Ramirez took advantage. On a contrast, I think Ramirez's corner were giving him bad instructions because they were telling him to step it up as Billam-Smith was coming into the fight and look for the knockout. So they were basically encouraging the trade-off. They were telling him to go and stop him. I would have just told him to get on his bike for the last 2 rounds. He had the fight in the bag, but that's fucking neither here nor there. The right man got the victory. Zerdo Ramirez, the enigma, continues. We see him at 68, we see him at 75. He's up a fucking cruiser. Maybe he'll go up and fight the winner of Fury and Usyk. But on a serious note, he'll probably pose a challenge for other guys now around cruiserweight. Seen Des mention Apataya. I wouldn't be mad at that fight at all. I thought he showed lovely technique last night on the turn. Turned Billam-Smith all night, and that's what you do with a guy who's fucking straight up and down, no special effects, as Floyd used to say. If a guy's fucking straight up and down and he hasn't got that kind of herky jerky style, just keep him turning, and that's where you get the fight won. The contrary to that, if someone's doing that to you, you have to be able to time him. And Billam-Smith didn't look like the timing was off last night a little bit, and that's, I suppose, credit to Ramirez. But yeah, that's about as much as I've seen so far. But I did see the Zepeda Farmer as well.
Just to come in there, Matty, just very quickly, because Rob makes some points I agree with. I think if the caveat to Ramirez giving Opetara a good fight would be, I want to see Ramirez look better at the weight. His legs were too small, his torso was too big, his arms were too skinny. If they can balance him out a bit and make him a proper 200-pound fighter, give him one or two outings in the next 10 months, I think that version of Ramirez with a world title could give Opetara a good fight. I'm not saying he beats him, but it could be a really interesting fight, and I'm here for that. I also think that I said last week, guys like Riakporhe, Okoli, maybe even Chamberlain will look at that fight last night and kick themselves because we didn't see anything different from Billam-Smith. He's pretty much in straight lines. He walks forward. He's quite predictable. And all Okoli had to do was give himself a bit of room. Same with Riakporhe at Selhurst Park. And I know Isaac didn't have a lot of time for that fight and he had been inactive himself. But if them three guys look back at last night, I think all of them would say, why didn't we account for ourselves and our tactics a little bit better? Because you do know what you're going to get with Billam-Smith. And what Ramirez done last night was pretty much, it's what you do with a guy like Billam.
Here you go. Let me throw this over. I'm going to throw this over to James. James, I'm going to make an argument here regarding the British cruiserweight scene. They are not the top of the crop in the cruiserweight scene. It's great that they had a belt that they could bounce around here and there. But I do think domestically in the UK, you have a fantastic chance to have an exceptional scene with CBS, the guys he's beaten, if they want to play the leftovers who have fought Opetaya. I think all those guys kind of play on a very similar level. I think they're evenly matched.
So what are you asking me, Matty? Like who's the best?
Do you think the British cruiserweight scene might have been a bit overrated, but that these guys are kind of on a level? They might not be the world class, but they could have some entertaining fights. Do you think that's a fair statement?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, like if you're grading like the average of UK cruiserweights against Opetaya, then yeah, they probably are at a bit of a level like below him.
Or chubby Mexicans.
Or chubby Mexicans, yeah, exactly. So I think we've seen it, haven't we? Chris Billam-Smith, whether you think he's overachieved or not, was like the top British cruiserweight, a world champion. And we saw what Ramirez did to him. So whether Chris Billam-Smith underachieved or however that stacks up in terms of form is kind of irrelevant because we're not going to get to see them do it all again in the same circumstances. So, yeah, I think would he have similar success if he went back against that same run of opponents in the same order after this fight? Probably not, but that's the form that got him to this stage. So whether Chris Billam-Smith will still be considered a world-class cruiserweight after this, it's kind of up to probably the result of his next fight, depending on who they put him against. If they bring him back down to domestic-ish level, or if they continue to push for the Opetaya fight as they were before this.
I would like to see CBS take close to a year off. Usually I'm hard on guys for being inactive, but after this, if I don't see him until the last few months of next year, I think that's fine. This was a bit of a heavy whooping that he took there. Simon Hill said that he had broken ribs and a broken hand, apparently as well, heart of a lion. Yeah, you got to say that. I mean, nobody's knocking CBS's heart. Like, that was insane. I've seen some whoopings that was high up on the recent whoopings list for sure. Ames, I do like a Jai Opetaya Gilberto Ramirez fight. I think it might be more competitive than people think. Ramirez went the distance with Bivol. I'm going to make the argument that Opetaya wins, but Opetaya beats him by decision.
Yeah, well, much more competitive now that we've seen him against a fully fledged cruiserweight in the form of Chris Billam-Smith, and I was one of those who's backing Chris Billam-Smith to get the victory in a fight of the year contender. I thought it'd be, and it didn't turn out to be that, although they showed a couple of the hallmarks of worthy of fight of the year contender in terms of grit, determination, and heart. More so from Chris Billam-Smith, and then technique, ability, variation, and punches from Gilberto Ramirez, but it didn't quite meld into that fight of the year contender, unfortunately. But yeah, look, now that Zerdo has that win under his belt, it pushes him really, really high. When you're talking about the domestic scene or further on, I think Chris Billam-Smith still beats a lot of the operators at the higher end of cruiserweight. So I think that really kind of puts your perspective onto how a Ramirez and Opetaia fight goes. What's really good for Zerdo is that even though Chris wasn't maybe the full reflection of the Billam-Smith that we've seen previously, he still tried, still came, and Zerdo looked like he could go another 3, 4, 5 rounds. Like, he didn't seem all that jaded by the end of the fight. And when you look at the end of the fights, when it comes to Opetaia, you really press him, you really push him. He might build up a good lead through 6, 7, and 8, but then 9, 10, 11, 12 at the highest level, he falls off of a cliff. Breedis twice had him in all sorts of trouble, and Zerdo don't fight like Breedis, but you can sort of formulate a game plan there where it goes to those later rounds, and then you start really kind of piling on and see what Opetaia is made of. Opetaia is a bit more kind of in and out, like how Bivol was, but he won't fight like that. But you'd have to still favour, because Opetaia has that a bit of agility, that speed as well too, and the power as well. You'd have to favour Opetaia in the fight, but Zerdo, it's a lot closer fight, as you're saying, than it would have been had we not had this fight. In terms of Chris Billam-Smith, like Simon Hill was saying, don't know when that hand injury happened. I'd like to know when it did happen. I'm not saying it didn't. I just wonder when it took place and how much of the fight it affected and then damaged rib as well too. But CBS is one of those, we're talking about that domestic scene. A lot of those fights happened on home soil. Not it happened in the UK, but in Bournemouth, which is where it's Chris's hometown. Chris has been one of those fighters who understands the limitations in the sport, understands that it's going to take a lot of hard work to overcome a lot of the talent that's in front of him, and he's done that. And alongside doing that, he's looked for those 1% where it comes to lowering blue lights on your screens, or putting tape over your eyes, or the way you breathe, and mentality coaching, things like that. All those add up to getting the most out of yourself. And I just wonder, when you've fought over in the UK for your whole career, and then you jump over to Saudi, how much of those 1% can you still scramble up to put together to be the form of yourself that you were beforehand? I wonder how that fight week kind of materialized and when they got there. And it's an experienced team. I'm not trying to cast aspersions to experience there, but I just would like to get the picture. Hopefully in the future we do get that, and it gives us an understanding of where CBS was, because it was a bit weird to just see, because I was at the Alien Ant Farm gig at the time, and by the time the gig finished, it was round 9, and you're thinking round 9, this is where Chris Billam-Smith was really going to come on strong, and this guy, like, it's not alien to see Chris Billam-Smith in a fight with his mouth open, gasping for air and things, but he's still strong in there, he's still throwing, but he just seemed a lot more vulnerable than he has before in the past. And I just wonder whether, I don't know, what was the reason for that, basically. The engine wasn't quite running as much as it used to be, and I don't think that's a reflection of weight or anything like that. I think it's pretty solid at cruiser. I just think maybe something didn't quite come together in the preparations, unfortunately for him, but he can come back. I think a good level comeback for him probably be Jack Massey, and there's a bit of bad blood between the two, and Jack's just won with a European title, and that'd be a good little homecoming fight that boxer can put on. Bournemouth is a real good, it's turning into like a good little fight night, fight week kind of thing, and he can come back in the summer, so there's a lot of time for that rest, maybe not a full year off, but can take his time to come back. Chris will probably have his eyes set on something higher up the chain, I imagine, with respect to Jack, but that's still a fight that they should do.
They want to run it back. I know the fight was kind of one-sided. I don't know if he's done enough to warrant a rematch. He didn't have a rematch clause in his contract as the champion, I think.
I don't believe it was a unification, wasn't it? So I don't think there would be any rematch clauses on either side there, unless, of course, the Saudis would want that, but they would much rather, I imagine, have Zerda and Opetaia as quick as possible. But go try and get a fight with Michelin if they can. If boxers have the money to make that fight.
He's very inactive.
Yeah, he is. He is. But yeah, there's still very much winnable fights for Chris. Absolutely, can't write him off. Even though he's had another defeat on his record there, but I'd still put him top of the chain in the UK here as well. Interesting, just a little tidbit as well too with Reactball. He's now moved from Angel Fernandez to Billy Nelson over in Scotland, and he's out against David Jameson, fighting in France, I believe, or Guinea. I think he might be fighting in Guinea. I might be totally off kilter here, but I'm sure Richard Reactball is coming out. I'm just have a quick little Google.
Yeah, I think it was somewhere weird.
Yeah. But yeah, Reactball, his former foe, is coming back, and I'm sure, yeah, he's fighting out in Guinea. That's crazy. But yeah, maybe that's something they do in the future as well, because they obviously have the rivalry as well, and maybe revisit one of those. But yeah, like a bit of rest for Christmas, but I'm sure he'll bounce back.
All right. Yeah. I hope so. I just hope he takes a good break, because that was a bit of a whooping. A fight that I missed was Arnold Barboza taking a unanimous decision over Jose Ramirez in a fight that I understand failed to ever really catch fire. Didn't really catch the attention of the fans either. So yay for me missing that one. Des, did you suffer through this fight? Was the result fair?
Yes, you didn't miss much, Matty. Ramirez is very faded now, and he's slowed down. And Barbosa's not an exceptionally dynamic fighter, but he just had an answer to everything Ramirez was doing. Ramirez looked old last night. Barbosa is one of them guys, 31-0. He's not a puncher. He's a decent technician. He needs to do a little bit more, though, for me, Barbosa. Both guys last night were very, very lukewarm. But Barbosa was a deserved winner, and he's chasing world titles now at super lightweight. I'm not sure where they come. I'm not sure if he's out of favour with a lot of the governing bodies for the things he's done in the past, but we'll see. But you didn't miss much last night, mate.
Good for me. If anybody has any thoughts on this fight, feel free to speak now or forever hold your peace.
Yeah, it was fully pedestrian. The one thing I will say about Ramirez, I completely agree with what Des just said there. Looked faded. Similar to Chris Billam-Smith, he just looked a little bit disjointed in his movements. Like it was an extra effort, to get anything done. And I'm not quite sure whether that's miles on the clock, or I don't know whether he was late coming to the sport or something like that, but he just didn't seem to have that fluidity that you see in, like, for example, like, Tevin Farmer, like plenty of losses on his record, whatever, gets a load of stick, but he's got a fluidity that you could see he's been boxing since he was like a little kid. And I don't think Ramirez has that, or Chris Billam-Smith has that. But yeah, definitely very lukewarm, a fair result. Not really too fussed if I see either of them again based off that performance.
Yeah, Barboza is still eyeing a title shot. He refused to pay his sanctioning fees for this one, though, because he feels like, I forget which sanctioning body, but he feels they've been holding him up, and he'd been a contender for long with no title shot. So he said, fuck you guys, we're not playing this game anymore. And I kind of appreciate him doing that. I'll give him a bit of love on that one. Also on that card, and what ended up being a far more entertaining fight than many folks thought it would be, Tevin Farmer dropping William Zepeda in the fourth round, getting all the way to the final bell with him there in a fight that Zepeda ultimately won via split decision. And I thought he did enough to win, honestly, but it was a very close affair. Farmer pushed him the whole way. Now he has back-to-back split decisions, I believe, with prospects in Murataya and Zepeda. Obviously trying to prepare Zepeda for a slicker southpaw and Shakur Stevenson. But he didn't look particularly good in this one, Ames. He had to work the whole way, but he got his way through it. I think there's a few positives to take away for William Zepeda.
I didn't see it, Matty. I was firmly entrenched in the Alien Ant Farm gig. So, Matty, what was your parlay? What was your parlay, Matty?
Zepeda by knockout, Collazo by decision, and Billam-Smith to win. And anyhow,
well, before, but what I will say though is, Tevin Farmer was shouting out after the fight, and I think he said before as well too. I didn't get drug tested for this fight for this whole entire camp. Where was the drug testing in this fight? Not casting any aspersions here, but when a fighter is calling out, where is the drug testing, and saying that the staff were busy or whatever it was he put out on social media, it's a little bit worrying, to be fair. But I did catch the knockdown. It was a smooth shot from Tevin, and he
nice left.
He said that he wouldn't have problems with such the output of Zepeda, and that was the worry, that he was just going to drown him. But from what I saw, Tevin seemed to be comfortable in that fire, and Zepeda does seem to be faltering, like you're saying, a little bit.
He referenced it a bit in the aftermath, because he said that how you fight a fighter that's a volume puncher. With my experience, you make guys that come forward go backwards, and they don't look as good going backwards. And I think he not exposed Zepeda a little bit, but he definitely showed flaws there. Like Tevin Farmer is a very, very good fighter. He's a very talented fighter. The problem with him is that he can't crack eggs.
Well, and he spent 2 fucking years chasing a Mickey Bay fight that just was cursed from the start.
Yeah, and I look. There's plenty to for a while. He was a proper underdog story. Like, he'd come back from adversity. He'd been shot in the hand, and he had a defense wound in a Philly house party. He'd been written off. He came back, won a couple of unexpected. Had a couple of unexpected victories, won a world title, and then fell apart from after the defeat. But he's a good fighter, man. Tevin Farmer's a very good fighter. The thing that, as I said, that goes against him the most is that he hasn't got that killer punch. Like, he hasn't got much of a punch at all. So he's not really a puncher, but he still found Zepeda last night, found holes in his defense, was able to poke him, was able to counter him, was able to push him back at times. And I think his Zepeda-Davis fight looks very much like a fight that Zepeda will be winning until he's not, if you get me. I think if Davis catches him,
I agree,
he'll fucking evaporate him, I think.
I like that fight a lot. I think it'll be fun, but I think that he just makes too many mistakes, and Davis is just too fucking accurate. It'd be fun. The Stevenson fight, I think, is more interesting because Stevenson doesn't have the type of pop to make it as nasty as Davis. But I still think, man, maybe Stevenson could land enough shots to get a stoppage. Des, you've been arguing for a while.
Sorry, just to come in there on that one quickly. I think that'll be if Shakur Stevenson finally starts to listen to the people around him, because he sounds like a petulant baby, right? Because every time the criticism of him is that, like, you're too good. If you're as good as they say that's grand to win these fights by decision and show this high level of skill, but you're going to have to give us more because the guys in your fucking weight, in and around your weight division, are offering more currency in terms of entertainment. They're more entertaining fighters. They've got several talented guys, so it's not like he can even be the standout guy just based on talent. So they're saying, give us more. And each time he goes out, he decides he's not going to do that, right? He'd go for the stoppage for a little while, then he'd go back and the fight will be a stinker. And the last time he got absolute pelters, and I think rightfully so. He's not listening to the guys around him, clearly. Like I said, he's a bit petulant. But if he chose to take on board the criticism that he gets and actually put it into practice, I think he could back Zepeda up and actually stop him. I really do think that's a fight for him, that if they line it up for him. Now, he has to uphold his end of the bargain. It's a bit Rigonda-ish in that aspect, you know what I mean? You give him
like you did to the Japanese cat.
Yeah, exactly. He needs to go fucking balls to the wall, go and stand his ground in the middle with Zepeda, and I think he'll actually punch the head off him.
The thing is, he'll have plenty of chances to hit him. And the one thing that I think is worth considering is this was a 10-round fight, not a 12-round fight. And I think the fact that Zepeda is still winging him late and winging him in high numbers is worthy of consideration. But Des, that knockdown definitely plays in your idea that you've been saying is, why won't they put him in with the puncher? Well, yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't know. What in 32 fights, why has he never been near a puncher? And I think
he got dropped by Tevin Farmer, eh?
Yeah, but Tevin Farmer is technically good, and he knows how to deliver punches correctly. And if you're there to be hit, Farmer could drop you. I think we probably see. Look, I thought Zepeda just won it last night. Anyway, I think the scorecards. I agree with them, but I think Farmer probably done better than we thought he would do against Zepeda. We was kind of expecting this to be sort of Zepeda's coming out night, a recognisable name in Tevin, who's a good fighter, who's had a good career, who we can relate to. But it didn't quite go like that. Farmer was everything we thought Farmer could be, and Zepeda was a level down what we expected him to be. So he stuttered a little bit last night, Zepeda. I've been asking for a long time, Matty, because you've always brought Zepeda to me. You've always said, "There's this guy can fight. This guy can have an impact at 35." And I've said, "Well, why don't they put him in with a puncher? This guy's not. This guy's been around now. He's had 30 odd fights. This guy can punch. This guy's travelled." But they're still a little bit reluctant. And when teams are reluctant to put good kids in with big punches, there's something they know that we don't. There's something they've seen. And last night probably was a little bit of an indicator of what we suspected for quite a while. I still think Zepeda can have big fights at 135. I'm in agreement with Rob, though. I think if you get anywhere like a proactive Zepeda, I think you'll force Shakur to be proactive. And I think a proactive Shakur punches Zepeda head off, to be honest. But I won't put him nowhere near Tank. I think Tank lights him up. But I think Zepeda's got a career at 135, but it's a very, very talented division full of very, very good fighters. So, I don't know, maybe it goes back to let's see another one from Zepeda, but let's see what he can deliver. But I think his window is closing now. We're going to have to put Zepeda in with a big name sooner or later.
Could it be Loma?
That's a great fight, and I think it's interesting you say Loma, because I think Loma's the guy that they might all fancy, because although he's a very good fighter, he's a brilliant fighter, there's so much less risk with Loma now compared to the other guys. Don't you agree, Rob?
Yeah, and I think Loma doesn't want to take the risk of a Tank Davis or a Shakur now.
Correct.
I think he takes long breaks. Him and his countryman take long breaks in between their fights. And I think that suits him at this age or whatever, and the training program they have. So I think for them, they'd be thinking that they could get the Zepeda as well. If they're having one more fight, I think he'd be favouring that as a fight he could win.
Oh yeah, but I mean, possibly. I think they're really chasing that title, and it sounds like the Shakur fight is probably going to happen, just based on the ranking organizations, this, that, and the other. And honestly,
Matty, sorry to come across you, mate. I want to just bring something to your attention, and maybe you can touch on. Zepeda now sits firmly in the middle with the brilliant fighters above him and that awesome crew that coming up behind him. He's got to be careful not to get sucked into that brilliant group of talented fighters underneath him, and not get to the guys above him. So I think he's got to. What's that phrase? You've got to get off the pot or something. You've got.
Get off the pot.
Yeah, something like that. He's got to make a move sooner. That window's closing now for Zepeda. I think Rob called it right there. I think Loma is the best one for him. I wouldn't want to put him near Tank, and I think Shakur's far too risky for them at the minute. And I think from what I've seen from Zepeda, I think Loma's the option.
Be interested if they make that happen.
Would you go Navarrete, Matty?
No, Navarrete's fighting at 130 now. After that Brenchek loss,
he's not doing that now.
Okay. Yeah. So and I'm trying to think. It looks like Davis versus Brenchek is something that they're going to be able to make happen, because that's all a top rank thing. So I think you got to separate that out. Keyshawn Davis and Brenchek will probably fight for one title, and Zepeda's position to fight for Shakur's title. So I think that's the fight that's going to happen. And it's a money fight too, is the thing. It's just interesting enough with the boxing fans to make money. I mean, not Jake Paul money or anything, but it'll make money.
And I think it suits both guys.
Sure. And they both have something to prove. And I think that both guys might bring out the best in each other. And he's definitely Shakur will definitely have plenty of chances to land punches, but he's got to finish him off, and he's got to go 12 rounds with him. Ames, if you were in the Shakur Stevenson camp, are you more interested in a fight after seeing last night?
I think Shakur's levels above him, personally. Not really any further interested. And I think Tevin showed what you can do if you know what type of fight you are, if you're accomplished in if you're accomplished technical fighter in the sort of mold of Tevin Farmer, which Shakur is, but a lot better. And Shakur uses his feet, of course, a lot more. I don't think you have much to worry about in the form of Zepeda, personally.
Yeah, and so James, they've talked about that fight as a possibility for first quarter of next year or early second quarter. Did you go into last night having any thoughts about Zepeda against Stevenson, and did they change after what you saw?
No thoughts really, but to be honest with you, if Tevin Farmer, as someone who's clearly past his prime, the smaller man in there, and not a notable puncher by any stretch of the imagination, can cause you that amount of problems, then Stevenson will just stand him on his head, really. I mean, like, I think Zepeda, looking at the rankings now, is more of a level of someone like Sam Noakes, to be honest. Like, what do you think about that? How do you think them two match up? Is that a mismatch or?
Oh, I think he'd beat the snot out of Sam Noakes. I mean, probably much the way he beat the snot out of Maxie Hughes.
With Maxie Hughes, though.
Go on, James.
Sorry, go on.
No, you go.
I think because with Maxie Hughes, like, he's in a similar bracket, I'd say, to Tevin Farmer, roughly. Do you know what I mean? Whereas Sam Noakes, he would be, I'm not saying he's the same level as Shakur Stevenson, but he's a younger fighter in his prime, full of confidence, stronger, physicality-wise, way more durable, less wear and tear, etc., than the older fighter with less power. So I think that's a better matchup. Really, I don't really see anything that special with Zepeda. Like, anything in terms of when you look at like Tank Davis.
It's a good motor. He's got a good motor.
Yeah, he's big and he's strong and he flies forward and he throws a lot of punches. But like, a lot of fighters can do that. But I think like Stevenson and Davis, they do things that most other fighters can't do, and I think that's the distinguishing factors between them at the top.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that the reason that I don't think Zepeda's out of a fight with Shakur that people don't talk about is this is Shakur's third division, and he looked good and stopping the Japanese guy, but the last fight didn't look that great, and it's, I know we get caught up. It's a possibility of some size tells and the fact that he just doesn't swing, and he's not like Mayweather where he was just popping people over at the lower weights either or anything like that. So I just yeah, Farmer dropped him and stuff, but then he got back on the front foot. So it's an interesting fight. There's a reason I want to see it at the end of the day. So we'll see if that happens. But I'm certainly looking forward to the possibility of it, because I still think it's an interesting clash of styles, at least on paper. But with the Shakur Stevenson fight, it could end up sucking regardless. So we'll see on that front. Let's see here. I tell you what, I think I got to tell you, the performance of the night, though, guys, for me, was Oscar Collazo taking out the long reigning 105-pound champion, CP Freshmart. I try to pronounce his actual Thai name, but that would go very poorly. And Collazo is just amazing. As many misses as I've had, I might have took him by decision, and that was wrong. He's been one of these fighters that since I first saw him, I'm very high on him, preaching that this guy is going to be around for a while, and he's got some serious tools, good footwork, that right hook is something else. He's looking to fully unify the divisions. He's got 2 titles left to go. He's now officially the ring champion. They considered them the 1 and 2. Des, what did you think about this performance from this young Puerto Rican kid? I personally think he's something special.
Last night he was flawless. He was punch perfect, and coming in at 10-0, he reminds me a little bit of the Japanese kid Taiki. They've looked at him and thought, we can fast track him. And he was going in against a really seasoned operator last night, the Thai kid. And if anyone was going to get caught out, it was probably Collazo. But he was flawless. He was punch perfect. That right hook was fantastic. His feet were good. He understood his angles. He fought the right fight at the right pace. He knew when to turn the screw. It's really interesting because when you get a generational great like an Inoue down there, it brings about other great fighters, or something happens. It sparks an interest in fights, and we start to get characters in boxing where we've never quite seen characters before. And if you think about right down there at 105, right up to say 122, you've got some really big characters now. You've got Kawaso himself, but you've got the Chinese kid Zhu. We've got our very own Sonny Edwards, and Charlie Edwards is a European champion, so he's still in that mix. We've got the brilliant Bam, Martinez at the same weight, Chocolatito still hanging around, so you've got a Hall of Famer there, Nakatani, who's a brilliant fighter, and Takei. And that's before we even get to that brilliant super bantamweight cluster of fighters. So for the first time in my lifetime, from super bantam down, we've got loads of characters, good fighters, and a lot of punchers. I think this guy is going to be a brilliant addition to that. And I think with what I've seen last night, only 11-0 now, I think we're going to see him travel through a few weights as well. He was brilliant last night. It was a flawless performance. I'm looking forward to seeing him again. And he's got a really big, powerful team behind him as well, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's got Miguel Cotto pushing him.
Oscar and Cotto, and he's got a really good team around him, yeah.
Yeah, and this is like his 10th fight or something like that. He's on a good track. And some of the other guys that have impressed coming up the weights, starting at 105. Kazuto Ioka started out at 105 as well. Chocolatito did his work at 105 to start his careers too. This is a guy to watch. He's not big. I don't think he's going to be able to go up the divisions quite the way some others have. But if they are willing to get him in with some of these Japanese fighters around 108 and 112 after he gets this division, man, that could be some fun times, and he could build a resume.
But with his skills alone, Matty, you've got to take into account just with the way he was using his angles and his feet and his punch variation, similar to what we saw with Ramirez going from 68 up to 200. I think if you've got his type of motor skills, especially down there, I think, yeah, I mean, we're not talking a new way type escalator, but I think we can see him go for at least two, maybe three weights.
Yeah, 105, 108, and 112. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. 3 weights. I think one of the arguments to make about Collazo is I think he might have top 10 in the sport footwork. Honestly, he's got good feet.
And he can punch as well.
Yeah, he's. I don't think he's as complete or as fluid as Bam Rodriguez, but he's not horribly far off.
No, and I think we had this conversation last week. I think Bam's probably one fight away from being a Hall of Famer now, first ballot. So if he picks the right fight, so yeah, he's probably not as complete as Bam, but he's only had 11 fights. Let's see what he's like in another 8 fights. Let's see where his weight takes him. Let's see how many more titles he picks up. I think he's a really big addition, but he's not the only one. Down there from super bantam, just underneath super bantam, from bantamweight down, I think we've got some real big characters now in boxing.
Yeah, and it's totally different than it was 15 years ago.
Correct.
And when I give great praise to Chocolatito, a lot of it's because he changed the game and he got people looking at those lower weight classes.
Yeah.
And the fact that they were able to find him quality dance partners in people like Estrada, Rungvisai, Quadras. I mean, there was plenty to be made in round robining a lot of those guys, and they delivered on the fights. And now, the lower weights have found their way into the hearts of everybody except for Rob Kelly.
But last thing I say, Matty, and what we could see now is first time in my lifetime. If you get a couple of big characters down there, we ain't got to drag them up 3 or 4 weights to where it sells. They could sell down there now. There's enough characters, enough good fighters down there to stay at their natural weights.
Yeah, and it's the fact that, I mean, you could be a little bit fluid down there too, and bounce around a bit. That's what Bam's done over the last few years before he kind of set up at 115. So you don't take anything off the table, and when these weights are so close together, it's not like if you make you're going through extra effort to make yourself comfortable in the weight, like going from 115 to 118, you're not having to fucking build yourself into the weight and hit the gym really hard or anything of that nature. You're just, it's much more natural. And that's what's so fun with these lower weights. Let's see here. I don't know who might have caught it. James, did you happen to catch this fight? I think you said you did.
Yeah, I caught it, and obviously very impressed as well. And I think as a minimum weight fighter, having 8 KOs from 11 wins is a very valuable asset, to be honest, because the smaller guys, I feel like a lot of the time you lose a sense of jeopardy if you're convinced that the fight is going to go to a decision. So that lack of anticipation can kind of take away from the prospect of, watching certain weight classes. But that's not to say they're not skilled. I mean, I remember the Superfly days when Gonzalez first became HBO mainstream, and I was thinking that was the first time I'd ever watched fighters of the lower end, and they're incredible. So yeah, it's just a bias that should probably be done away with at this point. But fighters like Collazo can demonstrate that exciting things can still happen in a way that appeals to a broader audience rather than, the technical aspects that is more for the hardcore fans.
Yeah, but the fact that he's producing these knockouts means that even for those people that aren't into the real intricacies of the sport, he can draw them in. He might be a little guy, but like we've been saying, they definitely have created an audience. And I gave a lot of love to Chocolatito, but let me also tip my hat to Nonito Donaire, whose 2007 knockout of Vic Darchinyan definitely set off some waves as well. That was a fine left hook if there ever was one, and he continued to deliver for many weight classes beyond that. And then in a second or third incarnation, once again at 118, where he did some phenomenal things for a man his age that people that age I don't think have done in the lower weights before. So, but yeah, again, Oscar Collazo, this is a guy who's not going to be going away any time soon for sure. But now a fight that man, this fight could have gone either way in the opinions people, but it went to Oscar Duarte by cards that seemed unreasonable to me. Ali Akhmedov definitely had an argument that he won this fight, let alone deserved more than 2 rounds in the eyes of one of the 3 judges. But this fight, man, it had a lot of hard shots, a lot of good body work. Both guys hurt at different times. Again, if you haven't seen this one, I think it was worth your time. There was a little bit of fun to be had on this Riyadh season card. Des, your thoughts on the fight, and if you thought the end result was reasonable?
Matty, sorry, mate. What fight was that? I did hear what you were saying, but just
Oscar Duarte and Ali Akhmedov.
Mate, I never see it. I'm sorry, Matty.
Oh, you didn't see it? Did anyone did anybody see Duarte Akhmedov? James, I think you might have said that you did.
I didn't, but I heard the card was dodgy.
You did, Rob?
No, the lads were just saying the card was dodgy. I didn't see it, no.
You okay, James?
I happen to agree with that. The card was a bit dodgy for me. I thought it should have went the other way, but it was a good action fight. A lot of body work on the inside. Just a close. Could have went 2 rounds either way. Very competitive. I thought it should have went the other way, but again, it's one of those ones that you could rewatch probably and dissect it round by round. You could do it 3 times and have 3 different results. So I wouldn't say it was controversial, but I definitely disagreed with the result.
Yeah, it was a tough one to get behind. I thought that it just seemed to me like Akhmedov was just landing the harder shots, working a little bit more. And, boxing is scored round by round. Absolutely. I get that. But it just seemed like he was piling it up, even though there were definitely some clear Duarte rounds. Again, it's when you get outside of that 6'4" sphere, I don't necessarily see what you were watching on that one. So unfortunate to say the least that the cards didn't work out for Akhmedov, who has a 10-4 record, and he has they mentioned on the broadcast, he's probably got the best resume of any 10-4 fighter that we can think of. So, onwards and upwards, though, for Oscar Duarte, who is looking for shots at big names. Devin Haney was mentioned by him. We'll see if he gets so lucky. I don't think that those are the kind of fights that Devin Haney is looking for. They found a way out of that Sandor Martin fight. Anyhow, there were some good fights this weekend. It was weird. Boxing is odd. It bothers me that most people saw a decision they thought was wrong. Speaking for boxing, but they did see a great fight. They saw farce, unfortunately, as well. It was just one of those weekends. Lots of ups, lots of downs. I don't know if the stock of boxing necessarily moved at all. But anyhow, we got just a little bit left here. Don't want to go too darn far into this, but there's a few things coming up this weekend.
Matty, sorry. Speaking
Yeah.
of farce, did you see the clip of Mike Tyson where they cut to him doing an interview? And the interviewer, I think, was his son, who asked him a question and then didn't put the mic to him, but he answered and he gave him a kiss, and then Mike walked off with his backside showing.
Yeah, I saw that when I got home on my phone, because thank God, because otherwise I would have seen it at the venue, which has, one of the largest screens of any venue in the entire world. So I'm glad that I did not see Mike's ass on live on that feed. Thank God for small miracles. And I just want to say there's one other fight that we're gonna preview that's not this weekend, but I'm gonna get it in there because I think I'm gonna take the week off. Ames, I left a message there. I don't know if you want to host next week or not, but I think it's slowing down just a little bit. Might be time to take one off. We got a holiday coming up here as well in the States. But anyways, this Friday, we're going to have Harlem Eubank against Nurali Erdogan, and that's going to be from Newcastle. Ames, do you know anything about that card? Channel 5.
No, not too much, to be honest with you. Is it Harlem Eubank, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, no, I think it's keeping Harlem Eubank busy off of the back of the fight with Adam Azim falling through. I just think they were looking to give him another fight out against this fella Erdogan. I haven't heard too much about him. From what I gather, Wasserman don't expect too much from him either. So I think it's just a bit of a run out for Harlem before the end of the year.
All right. It's just another one of those cards. But Channel 5, you never know. Sometimes they get a decently matched card on there. The one, as I was looking ahead for this weekend, that kind of snuck out at me, I'm like, oh, I forgot that this one was kind of happening, is we have the final of the overtime boxing tournament coming up, and Brandon Adams, who has competed in 2 Boxino tournaments in the finals and also the Contender Series final, beating Shane Mosley Jr., is now with another chance to win another tournament against the Greek puncher Andres Katsarakis. And this is a good fight, guys. I don't know if you guys have been following this tournament at all. Brandon Adams, who did he beat before he took 2 years off for some reason? He knocked out Sergey Pahuchik.
Yeah.
The guy's a real fighter, and this will put him right into the depths of the 154 division. O'Shea Jones against Femke Hermansen there. Jones working her way up, 7-0. Herman's a capable operator. The talented, undefeated Malik Montgomery taking on 26-2-1 Sakaria Lucas. Seen him a few times as well. So yeah, check that one out. That's going to be I imagine that's going to be on DAZN if it's the overtime boxing. That's what it has been on, and that's going to be on Friday night. So I'm looking forward to that one for sure. Let's see here. On DAZN from South Africa on Saturday, you're going to have Kane Ferre against Wasiro Muhammad. I know nothing of these fighters and nothing of this card, and I'm going to leave it at that way. Let's see here. Then we're going to have David Cardenas against Robert Ledesma from the Al Zafar Shrine Auditorium in San Antonio, Texas. I see no network on that one yet. Be still my heart. Maybe I won't be able to see that one. But this is, since if we're taking a week off, this is something that I would like to mention. And I don't know what else is on this card. I'll pull it up, but we can get into the main event and I'll see if there's anything below it. It'll be on Saturday, November 30th in Birmingham. Going to have Sonny Edwards against Galel Yafai. This one is reasonably close with the books. I think it's an interesting fight, especially kind of seeing how Edwards comes off of that beating that Bam gave him. And then I didn't like the way that he looked in his comeback fight going down the stretch. I thought he was a little bit lucky that it got stopped on an accidental foul, if I recall. Rob, what are you thinking about this fight? I think this is, you're not much into the little guys, but I think you've seen a little bit of these guys.
Yeah, I like Sonny Edwards' style, man. He has a kind of pure boxing style, moving, hit, not get hit, goes side to side a lot. I do like his style, and I do like that he wanted to test himself against the best, and he called for the BAM fight and wanted a BAM fight. So he gets credit for that. He wasn't good enough to beat him. No shame in that. BAM is showing kind of as he goes on in each fight that he's getting better and better. So he's a top level guy. I think Sonny Edwards will have enough. Well, the version of Sonny Edwards that I saw before the BAM fight would have enough to beat Gamaliel fight, I think. Des might be able to give more insights into it, but I just think he's better at getting in and out. Whether he's diminished somewhat for the last two performances, we'll see on the night. But I think a good version of Sonny Edwards beats Gamaliel fight. Decision probably.
All right. Des, do you think we're going to see that good version that should be able to beat Galal Yafai, as Rob believes?
No, Rob's right, though. We don't quite know what we're going to get from Sonny Edwards because the last two performances have taken a lot out of Sonny. So we're going to, before the BAM fight, that version of Sonny beats Yafai. I agree with Rob. And it's pretty much what type of Sonny we're going to get this time. I've got a hunch that with Sonny's style, he'll be able to negate a fighter like Yafai. I think he'll be able to negate him, and I think Sonny Edwards wins by decision. I don't think Yafai will get to him.
Doesn't think Yafai will get to him. Okay, this is being this is the main event and went kind of backwards on us. We'll get to the undercard. There's a couple of decent fighters on here. Ames, who are you leaning towards on this one? You going with the favorite or the underdog? Favorite is Edwards. I think fairly decent, kind of close fight, but definitely leaning Edwards.
What makes me kind of go more for Galal Yafai, and you can't deny Sonny and Galal. You can't deny Sonny and Galal's technical capabilities or abilities as a fighter as a whole, boxer as a whole. Sonny has gone through a change in trainer for this fight. I can't remember off the top of the head the name of the trainer he's with now, but with respect to that trainer, doesn't have the experience to the level of Grant Smith, who he was with previously. And that when you're up against Yafai and McCracken, who's been with him all the way through that GB setup and all the way to from into the pros and helping him win that gold medal, that's a formidable team. And his trainer won't quite know Sonny as well as other trainers will have known him, and that's sort of swaying me leaning towards Yafai, as well to the fleet feet of Sonny is still there. But they don't move as much. They sort of start losing a bit of a step in the mid rounds. I don't know how many rounds now Sonny can keep that for, and he seems to like kind of holding his feet more and like throwing those shots.
Well, like I said, he was happy that fight against Curiel was called off, whether he made it clear or not. He was running out of steam.
This is a fight as well that has a lot of emotional value for Sonny Edwards, not so much for Galal Yafai. Sonny has, and I'm sure probably will continue to shout to the rooftops in the lead up to this fight week about him should have been picked for GB and should have gone on and won medals for GB. Whether that would have been the case, I'm not sure. That's for another life to say. But what kind of negates Sonny's point is Galal did go and win that gold medal. So yeah, a lot of emotional riding on Sonny Edwards, and he's got to manage that going into this fight week. And he's made Robert McCracken the enemy in this fight week more so than Yafai, and he will really want to get one over Robert McCracken, but the focus is on Yafai and not McCracken. So yeah, like all those kind of put together, I'll probably lean towards Galal. But it'll be a good fight, another good fight, and another good fight for Birmingham as well too.
Yeah, and I'll tell you though, James, I'm just looking curiously at the resume of Mr. Yafai, and he has never fought a fighter with a losing record. In fact, in his recent fight, just to kind of stay active against Sergio Orozco Oliva, he fought the fighter who had the worst record that he's faced, who was at 9-8 before he'd faced him, and is now a 500 fighter following that stoppage loss. They're not messing around with him. Sonny Edwards did not like the way that he was feeling late in the fight against Yafai. He fell apart late against Bam. If I say I could see Yafai stopping him in about 10 rounds, 10, 11 rounds, are you buying what I'm selling on that, James?
Of course I'm buying it, man. I'm a brummie. Like, backing Galal all the way.
He doesn't want to get his ass kicked on the streets. That's a good move. Good move, Jim.
So, yeah, obviously I'm completely biased in this about this fight. I like Sonny Edwards. I like the way he fights. I think he's very brave, man, to go up against the fighters he's gone up against. Yeah, I think it's a question of what he has left. And I think Galal Yafai, even though he's very easy to hit in close quarters, he's a very intense pressure fighter with a lot of power. And he might be getting Edwards just at the right time. So I think it's a miles on the clock question, really, because if basically when Galal Yafai's kind of peak ends, I think the fall off will be pretty steep because his durability gets him into a lot of positions where he can find success, even though he's got a lot of other great attributes. But for the minute, he's still on a really, really hot streak, and he's still got the confidence, and he believes in his chin, and he's still got that aura of invincibility, which is so important to young fighters making their name in the sport. So, yeah, I think it's more of a timing thing. But yeah, I think Galal might have got it just right here. But yeah, again, I'm biased, so
it's all good. It's just so hard to believe that Sonny Edwards is younger than Yafai.
That's mad.
Yeah, absolutely. But what a name to potentially have before you hit double digits in fights. That's a heck of a W to pick up early on in your career. Man, if he gets it, I got to say, sky might be the limit for Mr. Yafai. During the short window he does have, sitting at the age of 31, he might only have 4 or 5 good years of pro in him. But if he beats Sonny Edwards, he could have 4 or 5 good years of pro.
Matty?
Yes.
Can I ask Ames a question?
Always.
Has he left the Steel City gym, Ames?
Ames.
Sorry, apologies. I'm definitely not playing Call of Duty Zombies at the same time. Yes. Yes, he has left the Steel City gym.
Well, that's a funny dynamic because he's loved it there, and he always spoke so highly of Grant. So I thought they brought in one of Grant's assistants to work with Sonny. I didn't know he'd left the gym as well.
Oh wait. Oh, okay. Sorry. Maybe that's missed up on my part. Let me double check that. It might be that he's still in the gym, and with that assistant. So yeah, no, I retract that. That might be the case. I need to double check that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know for a fact, Ames, but I know he liked it there so much for such a big fight to change not just your trainer, but your environment and surroundings you've had for the last 5 or 6 years. Yeah, it'd be a difficult one.
There was whispers and things that he might have maybe gone to Booth was a consideration. A couple of the gyms were a consideration as well.
He's been there in Booth before, isn't he?
Yeah, I believe he has. Yeah,
he started there.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't think whatever the reason for moving from Grant Smith to another has come out as of yet.
Right.
But yeah, it's a intriguing move ahead of this big fight.
Well,
where there's a lot on the line for him.
Grant's very busy now, isn't he? And a lot of his fighters are getting a lot of work. So sometimes when you've got a big fight coming up, you want all the attention. You say, look, I want you to dedicate a lot of time to me. And sometimes when you get so many numbers, you just can't do that as a trainer. And that's why you see a lot of trainers bring assistants in, and the assistants end up having a really good relationship with the fighter. And in some cases, you see the fighter say, well, I'll stick with the assistant because we've now got a chemistry.
Yeah, it's, and the corners play, in these top fights, like we say, I mean, these things are done at the margins. We'll see what happens. But guys, I got to say, before we head out, this is a good undercard. I'd like to actually hear your thoughts on this as I kind of look
through. Matty, apologies. The fella's name is Chris Williams.
No, I don't know, man.
And it's the No Name Gym, I believe it's called.
Oh, funny enough.
Okay.
And
Cheers,
it's in Liverpool.
Right.
So, so on this card, no details yet. Callum Smith making his return to the ring, but we have some decent other fights on here too. Conor Walker against Lewis Ritson, Cameron Vaughn against Gavin Gwynn, Kieran Conway against Ryan Kelly. I think this is actually a pretty damn decent undercard. Anybody have thoughts on this? Feel free to roundtable it.
I think Conor Walker and Lewis Ritson is a decent fight. I think Conor Walker comes through him. I think Conor Walker boxed really well against who's the Irish kid, Rob from Northern Ireland. A good fighter, I like him. But Conor Walker done really well. No, the other one, his rival.
Crocker.
Yeah, he done really well against Crocker. Was it Crocker he boxed, Ames?
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah,
it was.
Conor Walker is one of the fights of the year. Brilliant fight. I think Conor Walker, they're bringing him back against Lewis Ritson. It's not an easy fight, but I think we've seen the best of Lewis, a weight below us. So I think that'd be a hard fight for Lewis. And
it's a mirror fight, isn't it, Des? Because everything every word you use to describe Lewis Ritson in his pomp, you'd say of Conor Walker, wouldn't you?
Correct. 100%. Yeah, 100%. And I think that's the best fight on the undercard, Matty. I think the other ones are pretty much a given. Maybe Conway against Kelly's an intriguing fight. And I'd like to see what we've got left of Callum Smith. I'd like to see him get a few rounds.
Yeah, I'd just say of the prospects on the card, I always want to shout out Ibrahim Spider Sulaiman. He's coming off of a pretty bad cut, but he's returning to the ring managed by JK. One of the fighters is putting a lot of stock into to kind of boost up the Midland scene. Really great, fun type of style, and he's got a little bit of power as well to boot. And then Hamza Udden as well looks for all. I know it's really early in his career, but this guy looks like he's on his way to the top. A lot of talk and whispers about how good he is as well. And he's got a fun start, and he's got that power as well too at the lower weight. So Hamza Udden is definitely one for the future alongside Ibrahim Spider Sulaiman.
Ames is giving the scoop there on the inside in the gym where he got worked by the 8-year-old. I was actually,
why did you keep bringing that up?
I don't know. I just can't get it out of my head every time the D2 comes in. That when I'm on the pod, it fucking springs to mind. But I actually gave Spider the shout out early before he turned pro on the pod from just looking at D2's videos of him like fighting amateur. Like he's got, like you said, really exciting style. I think he can go all the way, dude. Like I really like the look of him. Obviously, like it depends when when you get up into the real elite and you see how these guys perform. But I think they're moving him the right way, keeping him active. And yeah, from what I've seen of him, like really exciting guy. Like.
Yeah, my younger brother sent me some videos of Spider Sulaiman like from about a year or two ago, and he looks absolutely unreal. But I've always missed him like fighting live, and I've seen a few like YouTube bits on him. It was like a documentary from BT Sports or something at the McCracken gym in Tysley, and yeah, he looks next level. So it's pretty nice that he's getting a run out. It's a bit weird that Callum Smith is like jerking the curtain. I don't know what that's all about. Probably like Christmas payday or something. But I also remember seeing Ryan Kelly's debut at the Holt Suite at the Villa Ground. So he's gone a very traditional route to find his way to like co-main event here. So in terms of representing the West Midlands, I'd say it's pretty strong, to be honest.
Hey Rob, speaking of sparring, when are you coming to get some work? Because last time I checked, I've been over to Ireland twice and you've ducked.
I thought you said you were all right, Spider. I'd love to. If I've been to Birmingham before, and I wouldn't mind going back. If I'm ever down that way, I go down and let D2 take me on the pads or whatever. And if I feel that we can have a little move about, if you want, we have a little push and pull on the cobbles, no problem. Kelly's talking no one. 46 years of age, still can fucking no. I tell you what, right. I kind of like now think if anyone wanted to fight me, I'd be just like, all right, man, you win. Like you have the fight because you think you can still do things and all that you can do. Like, but I went back training at the start of the year, and I was like on the bags and that, like, and then like still playing soccer, and like pulled me calf and that, like, and it's taken me fucking forever to get back. And my diet's not the best, you know that way. Like, so I'm starting to feel it now. I need to get back active, but what you call it? Des was talking last week about Scott Welch, right, and saying like that he thinks he would beat Jake Paul, and I was like for that argument because I have played, like he was talking about high level sportsmen, you go and try and play them when they're old, and Johnny Giles and that. Like, I played in some of those bounce games where you'd be playing against the next pro and they're 90, but they're still fucking pinging the ball all over the place and you can't get near them. Like, but Scott Welch was actually referenced on TalkSport during the week there with Simon Jordan and that, and Adam Smith, when they were talking about, you know, the potential for the Tyson Jake Paul outcome. And Scott Welch said, I'm 50, whatever, keep myself in shape, had a spar with my son during the week. Got a punch in the stomach and said, what the fuck was that? So I don't know if I could get back sparring. I think I last sparred when I was about 36, maybe fucking 10 years ago. So I don't know, like I might need a warm-up. I might need a serious warm-up, Ames. But if an 8-year-old's fucking pinging you around the sparring, I think I'll be all right. I just keep you on the stick, you know that way?
Ames
Just to clarify.
taking on Marvin Toddler.
Just to clarify, and by the way, I want to shout out as well to that gym because I think it's been brought up. I think Joe Gallagher brought up in an interview with IFL TV. It's like how many reporters are getting into gyms, and it's one of those things where McCracken's gym has opened their doors to me, and I get to go to do the classes. I've got invested in my health and doing some one-to-one sessions as well, just to learn a bit more about boxing and training a bit more like a pro as well, and then hopefully seeing some more sparring as well, and getting to know some of these, who are trying to climb the ladder up in boxing in a professional game from the first rung all the way to the top, and kind of follow their journeys and really like be on the ground and just catch up with them on a daily basis and just see what they're doing. A fella called Tom Cole, who's turning pro. Young kid, got a lot of enthusiasm for the sport, and he's connected with Tom Little as well too. Had a lot of advice from him. They've got a fella called Dean Doe Jr. as well too, who's turning pro. Trey Dewberry, cruiserweight, coming through. It looks pretty good, to be fair as well. Obviously got a lot of learning to do, but looks like he's capable. Oscar McCracken as well. Lineage of McCracken is continuing, and John Pegg reckons he's got that McCracken spite about him. And then as well too, like I've been alongside my own journey with things, managed to drop a stone from all the sparring that I've done, Rob, whether I've been beaten up by 8-year-olds or not. It's helped me melt down the weight.
You wear glasses, don't you? You have glasses, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
I'll be talking shit to you with sparring, call you Four Eyes and all. Four Eyes were my favourite insults. I have glasses too, but you see my road rage though. Someone has glasses, I'm like, you 4-eyed bastard.
But you know what? Like, just in terms of like the fitness stuff, just like I never like put on a sweatsuit and done like a workout, and like the idea of like making weight and stuff. It is fucking rough. And like one of the things Spencer said to me is like, now you sort of have an understanding, like when it comes to fight week and people want interviews and things like that, like. And he's not saying it in a harsh way. It's just giving me the perspective. Like, this is what the fighters are going through to like get to that weight, and you're like getting a little taste of that. So it was a bit of an eye opener.
It's the best. Honestly, I used to box when I was a kid, and then had a fucking lifetime of debauchery, and then went back to sparring and training just to get fit, like at 30, and fucking boxed again for another 7 years. Got back sparring and everything, like, and the discipline it gives you, you feel better, energy's up and all that. Like, it's brilliant for anyone. I'd fucking highly recommend it for anyone. And it's good for your head as well. Like.
Yeah, and that 8-year-old kid
hitting it by an 8-year-old.
That 8-year-old kid. I tell you now, you're going. If that 8-year-old kid, which I think he is going to be the bee's knees. Like you'll know then that I helped him along the way.
You should.
Zayden is his name.
The kid is like that fucking little kid in the Mayweather fucking 24/7s. Remember him? He went down to be a pro. What's his fucking name?
Carmel Walton.
Yeah, I don't think it was him. It was a cash flow, baby cash flow or something. Remember him?
Oh, Diaz. Floyd Diaz.
Yes.
Yeah. He can't punch for shit. But you know, bro,
like 8-year-old, but he's under light names up.
Let it go, Rob. You're gonna make me go to that gym again, right?
He's gonna kill the kid. He's gonna fuck the kid up the next time we see him.
He's not. He's not 8. He might. I can't remember how old he is. He's not 8. Might be 10. Clutching here, aren't I?
Is he tall for his age?
No, he's short and he's squat. But he fucking packs a punch, honestly. It was I remember phoning my mate and I was just telling him, I was like, he goes, oh yeah, it's like a stitch up in it. Like they put you in and think you're just like moving a kid around and he just whacks you.
It just sounds
and you can't smack the kid back, can you? Because then you look like a dickhead, don't you? So you just kind of caught in betwixt and between. So he would have walked through it anyway.
He's trying to describe it like that, but we all know it kind of looks like the scene in Bad Santa when the midget's fighting Thurman Merman.
It was just like trying to boxercise Ben his way into walking the kid down. Listen to him. It's the worst kid beat down since fucking Billy Joe Saunders, this young fella punched Willie Monroe on the Ghoulies. Let the fuck away in.
Oh god.
Fucking fantastic banner.
Anyway, shout out to you two with all the boys. We wish them well.
You might want to consider writing a book on the benefits of boxing to get back your fitness, but I would go with the better title than the benefits of getting hit in the face. Even though that's short.
It was body
describing.
I
was talking to Rob. He was the one who said
but there's a lot to be said for getting punched in the face. Although I had a slippery enough style, I never really took too much fucking, as you can see, I never took too much punishment. But there's a lot to be said for getting a fucking smack in the jaw with all these young fellas. Like, they're just going through life facing no fucking adversity, soft fucking playing Xbox and Call of Duty or something. They need a fucking whacking them out just to fucking straighten them out a bit. Like,
yeah, I'm definitely not doing that right now.
I'm doing this for the youth of Ireland, he says.
Someone just fucking, you know what I mean? Just fucking slip it away, fucking drinking cans of Red Bull, just turn it into fucking slobs. Like, fucking get a box in them out and wake up, like.
Yeah, they're probably drinking soda pop and smoking marijuana. Who would do such things?
Yeah, animals.
But anyways, I think this might be a sign that we've taken this show as far as we can take it.
No, the side we took it is too far. Chuck Woo's called me out in the chat now.
I know.
Get Tom King on the horn.
But he also says he has big tits.
That's why I like him.
It's like
speaking of which, the Oscars misses out in Riyadh. Oofed. Anyway.
So we all know the real star of the show this weekend, though, was that one blonde ring card girl at the Tyson fight. That was spectacular. Anyhow, I
have a Father's Head moment there and say the black girl was lovely too.
They were all gorgeous. It's just for one of them in particular, I'm just like, Jesus Christ. Anyhow, I wonder
what was it like there? Sorry,
my
quickly, I missed the fucking. You went there. What was it? What was the fucking feeling like? Give me the ambiance.
We already went through it, but I'll tell you after.
Right, tell me off
show.
Yeah. For sure.
So, but anyways, I'd like to thank everybody for coming on. It's been a great panel today. We've had James Dez, Ames, and also Rob Kelly. When we will be back with you, I think in 2 weeks, and we'll go back over what happened with this Yafai Edwards fight and the card. Hopefully it sticks together because I actually think that's a pretty damn good card on paper. But I hope that you folks have a good one for all the Americans. I hope you have a fantastic Thanksgiving in between all this. And may our futures include better things than Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson.
And Matty, can I say one thing before you go?
Sure.
It's come to me. The greatest Italian boxer of all time.
Okay.
Marvin Hagler become an Italian national at the end of his life.
Absolutely. And I don't blame him for taking him. God bless the late, great Marvin Hagler. He died the best way you can as an Italian, not during wartime. You folks take care. We'll see you next week.
We'll never forget.
Golly, that's good on me.
Go to and move!
We want to be honest, yeah?
Crying like a little bitch. I've never met a fucking swank that can fight me.
I fell asleep.
You're a fucking bum, you're a fucking asshole.
Rumpo fucking Steltskin.
But allegedly, Oscar Rivas has failed a test.
7-year ain't. I will fucking smash fucking you.
I hope you fucking die.
Be safe.
I love boxing sounds, as simple as that.